Are you tired of the same old pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 4,000 hours of the best pro wrestling events from over 110 of the biggest names in the industry from over 15 countries around the globe. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Mike Sempervive from WrestlingObserver.com. On today's show, we're reviewing the nights 5 through 7 of the G1 Climax, answering your questions and covering all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing to the Social Suplex Podcast Network on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. This episode of Keeping It Strong Style is brought to you by Powerslam.tv. Powerslam.tv is an independent wrestling streaming service with over 5,000 hours of wrestling from companies across the world. Use the promo code SOCIALSUPLEX to get your first month free. Also, make sure you check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, ProWrestlingTees.com/SocialSuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. And like you heard on the intro, we are joined by Mike Sempervive from WrestlingObserver.com, co-host of Wrestling Observer Live and the Big Audio Nightmare podcast. Mike, thanks for joining us, man.
I appreciate you having me on. Sorry you had to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get to me to talk about the G1. There are a lot of people knocking down your door, so I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
No, man, thank you so much for coming on, man. You're a big league, man.
You know, I'm trying. I'm trying here. Every day is a struggle, but I'm trying to one foot in front of the other one. We just try to keep it moving.
Cool, Mike. So normally when we have guests on, we like to kind of get a little background on their New Japan history. So when did you start watching New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Man, I think on a regular basis, it was around 2002. I guess it would have been 2001. That was, as far as like really keeping up with it strong on a regular basis. My first initial seeing anything from New Japan actually comes from the Coliseum video days of the WWF, where they would have like the greatest matches, and I can't remember the names of each one of the tapes, but they would have Dynamite Kid against Tiger Mask at Madison Square Garden, and they would have all of these sorts of, they would have different people on there. Tatsumi Fujinami, against Estrada, that was on a tape from Madison Square Garden that I had seen. But the Coliseum video was the first thing to kind of put it in my mind, where it was Cobra. I think there was another one that appeared at Madison Square Garden that was on one of those. But Tiger Mask was that first person that really kind of stood out as wow, look at this. And in the magazines, while there was a lot of coverage of All Japan, I just tend to always remember there being a lot more of the New Japan coverage, or at least that's what I gravitated towards. Antonio Inoki and the eternal struggle to prove wrestling as fighting, which, I was never big on Carl Gotch or anything like that, but I was a boxing fan. I was a wrestling fan. So to see Inoki as I was growing up in there, standing next to Leon Spinks or standing next to a Russian judoka or a wrestler or Willie Williams in karate or somebody like that. It was, it was never my style of wrestling or anything like that, but that visual always worked. And when it came to Inoki and making him a legend, it kind of worked for me. And so between that and growing up where I was, there was an Asian market that actually had New Japan videos. It was somebody had, VCR tapes that my brother would get, and he would bring them home. And this would have been late 90s. I graduated high school in 94. So this would have been around that time and a little bit later where he would get videos from this place. So, while everybody else was watching Steve Williams and Vader and Kawada and Misawa and all those guys in All Japan, like I had access to Muda and Hase, which was, incredible for me. And it was great for me, doubly because Muda is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time because of him being in the NWA in 1989. So, while everybody else, and then here's the thing too, I was not part of the newsletter community, and I was never part of the tape trading community or anything like that. I never had the money to do that, and I never really had the want to when it came to the newsletters, and certainly I didn't have the ability when it came to the tape trading. I didn't have a plug for it, and I wouldn't have had the money anyway, to really do a lot of that stuff. So while people were watching All Japan and getting really into that and, kind of falling behind what Dave would write and things like that, that wasn't there for me. The most accessible thing for me was actually New Japan because of the tie-in with WCW, because of the ability to see them in the magazines, because of these tapes, and then because of video games later on down the line. That was another thing my brother helped me out with. I was never a big video game player or anything, but like WCW, Revenge, and World Tour to see Hashimoto, to see those guys too, it made it more relatable. It was one thing to see Boss Rutan, against Yuji Nagata. It was another thing to see, Boss Rutan in the game. It just made everything more tangible. It made it more real, with some of that stuff. So it brought New Japan closer to me, I think, than any of the other, Japanese products out there or anything like that. And so in 2001, when Yuji Nagata got his head knocked off by Mirko Cro Cop, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, I contacted, I think it was Zach Arnold of Puresu Power, and believe it or not, that's what kind of started it, because like Yuji Nagata always liked, your NWA, your WCW TV title contender in NWO World Tour or wherever the hell the game was where he was in there, and him, I was always a big fan of his because I knew his amateur background and I liked him as a young lion coming to America. Yes, he didn't have a good run here, but who did? It was better than being Kurosawa like Nakanishi was. I'd rather be Yuji Nagata than, feuding with Ultimo Dragon than somebody else getting beat up by Disco. So it was like, so I was a big fan of his. So I couldn't figure out exactly what was going on when he was put into a position of a shoot fight. And it just seems so ridiculous to me. It's like, well, how did anybody know that Cro Cop wasn't dangerous? Like I see this dude on ESPN K1, like those Strike Force shows. They used to break up the K1 shows that were like 7 hours long, and they put them on at like 2 a.m. on ESPN2 and stuff. So it's like I couldn't figure it out, and that ended up being the thing that got me into New Japan on the regular, was asking what the hell happened there, and then getting involved with what Inoki was doing at the time, and seeing the way the company was about to blow up and implode.
The funny thing is, Mike, having you on the show, a lot of people kind of always reach out to us and say, they're like, oh, Josh has a lot of like knowledge when it comes to New Japan. But, one of the things that's funny, it's like surreal to have you on the show, because I remember reading your stuff in the early 2000s. And that was kind of even though I'd been following New Japan for a long time, that was like my education to figure out what was going on. And, Inoki holding like the Bombaye events before he did like, the January 4th Tokyo Domes, and your takes on it, and kind of just educating me on like the state of Japanese wrestling. So like, it's so crazy to like, everything you're saying is like right up my alley. But before we move on to the next question, I did have one thing I want to ask you. Like, with you covering this company for so long and this product for all these years, how surreal is it now in 2019 to see it at its all-time popularity here in the West? And, is it like, do you have like gatekeepery tendencies, or is it more like this is like a joy for you?
Shit is crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. I mean, it's like, because like when I started talking about wrestling, there was, I mean, you can imagine, I mean, maybe you can't, because like I forget that I'm old, so it was like 18-year-old grown adults that like have no idea what I'm talking about, but like that era of those newsletter guys, those Meltzer guys, those internet guys, the chat room people, all that. I'm not dissing them or anything like that, but like I came in as an American looking at Japanese wrestling and asking questions as to why and what's this about and things like that. And they were many times, and granted, probably it's how I went about asking some of these questions and things like that. But like, fighting spirit, like, please tell me why two guys are just standing there slapping the shit out of each other. This doesn't make any sense to me at all. Why doesn't somebody do this or do that? Like my curve, I came in and there was not a whole lot of curve. I just came busting in at a time where people could bust in and do some talking. So like I kind of had to learn a lot of things on the fly, and there were a lot of people that were not very helpful at all in that process. And, and it was difficult. And, because it's like, I was coming in as an American fan watching Japanese wrestling, and I never tried to present myself as anything but. I never tried to act like I was going to Japan on a regular basis and doing this and doing that. It was like I was just watching and observing and just started, talking about it that way. And as it grew and as I grew watching it and had the ability to talk to people that were wrestling on the regular in Noah and wrestling on the regular in New Japan and stuff like that, I started to kind of like build it out that way. So it's just, I've been very lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. But, to see New Japan, to see them basically die and then, basically recycle their own earth and plant the seeds again and watch them grow. And it was tough soil for a long time. But, when things are that drought ridden and so rough and so horrible, some of the sweetest juice, when it does start to bust out, that's how it ends up busting out. It tends to be, really sweet and really wonderful. And that's kind of where we're at right now. And, I've heard they're at a crossroads now for a long time. What's going to happen? Oh, they're killing themselves. This Bullet Club thing isn't going to last. That was 10 years ago. Everything under the sun, I've seen it all, kind of at this point. So that's why I can just kind of sit back and, you have to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, because I come from a time where Simon Inoki was there and there were a lot of people that did not know what was going on. And the ones that did know what was going on wanted to go. So it's like, to live through all those eras, long story short, a lot of words. But, to live through all that and see where it's at now, believe me, I'm still blown away by it.
So you've seen pretty much, the genesis of so much of what we're seeing today. Out of all that time of watching New Japan Pro Wrestling, who has been your favorite New Japan wrestler?
Of all time, or of this, like, particular of the last, God knows what, the last 20 years or so?
How about both? Of all time and maybe, like, the last, 5 years?
I think of all time, it's Muta, and Chono's right there. It's not Chono as the wrestler, but Chono as the character. I love, there's a reason everybody says, you wish you were as cool as Masa Chono. And it's the truth, from the fashion and, how he presented himself and just being that dude. I mean, he was fantastic, and he was always a great company man and took a lot of bullets for that company when things weren't going well. Yep. He got blamed for a lot when he was, when he was the foreman, but had Inoki's thumb on top of him. It was, it was crazy. But Muta is always right up there too. I always love Keiji Muta, the great Muta is there as well too, and Yuji Nagata also, who's going to fall. Because of where he started, he kind of falls before what we're talking about. But he's the great bridge to it. I'm so happy that. I had a lot of respect for Nagata, and that's why it killed me to see him get laid out by Crow Cop. And I remember that they would call him Mr. Deadstock. That was the line that was put in about Yuji Nagata, that he's dead meat now. They sent him out there to be slaughtered. Now his wrestling career is done, and they fed him Bas Rutten, they fed him Takayama, they fed him Barnett, they fed him all these shooters, but nothing mattered. And to see over the years pro wrestling come back to New Japan, the pro wrestling be strongest, the pro wrestling love, to see that come back, and to see Yuji Nagata get his career, completely regenerated and become that Hall of Fame presence, or at least borderline Hall of Fame presence he probably should have been since day one. That's awesome. And the reason he's there are the new people that came along that have been fantastic, which for me, it's Nakamura and Tanahashi, because Adam and Summers and I used to do the Big Audio Nightmare, and we talked about, the new Three Musketeers, the Shibata, Nakamura, and Tanahashi. And, who's going to be the one? And I always thought it was going to be Nakamura. And then, there was all this stuff that happened where it didn't look like it was going to be Nakamura for a while. And, it ended up obviously being Tanahashi more so than everybody. But, those dudes and Okada, I mean, what can you say about them? Of this era, it's like they're just completely fantastic. And, I have a soft spot for Nakamura, but you got to stand back and say Tanahashi is one of the best professional wrestlers of all time, and you can't take that away from him. And now you got Okada coming behind him, and there's probably going to be a generation of people by the time Okada's done who's going to be saying the same thing, that he's probably eclipsed Tanahashi, and he's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, if they're not saying that already. So It's like, I think those guys, like these new Musketeers, like I'll put Okada in Shibata's spot, but of the bridging of the eras, for me, it was Muta, and it was Chono, and it was, those guys, and to a lesser extent Hashimoto. There are other guys I like too, obviously, but those two guys into Nagata, and then Nagata bringing us into Nakamura and Tanahashi and Okada, I think that's, for me, I think that's how it goes.
Yeah, with their dojo system and the way everything's set up, man, they're just going to keep pumping stars out. You look at some of the young lions they have now, like your Uemoras and Shota Uminos and Ren Naritas, Suji, even the LA dojo guys now, Carl Fredericks and Clark Connors. These guys, they're already really good at this beginning stage, and I'm really looking forward for when they come back from excursion and seeing how they're going to play into the layout of New Japan, and which one of those guys are going to kind of be the ones that lead us into the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about that system, and that was when they closed ranks on that system, and I think it was I'm pretty sure it was under Choshu, because it was I think Finn Balor was the only foreigner that was left. And they kind of closed ranks, and, that helped to really help rebuild things and help rebuild the dojo system, because before that, I mean, you look back at those old Young Lions Cups, and you just look at what history has dictated to all of us about where they were at for a while. I mean, Kenzo Suzuki. Yeah. Now, granted, they left. People left to go do other things, and they left to, but who was Giant Bobo, the giant volleyball player in Hustle? Was that Nagai, I think? But those guys, that's what was being created for a while. And yeah, I mean, they had the MMA guys, they had Blue Wolf, remember him, Sumi Bazar, the wrestler from Mongolia, and guys like that. And I don't blame them as much, I don't blame them as much, but for a while, they lost their eye on what talent was and what stars were going to look like. And they've done a fantastic job, over the last, God knows how many cycles of Young Lion systems, where it's they're going to be, they're thick for a while, when it comes to talent. Now, granted, they actually have to develop them. They need to give them personalities. They need to, to take them to those next steps. But if you look at New Japan, they can still lose a significant amount of guys, not all of them, but they can lose guys and still function as long as the train keeps on moving. I hate to say this, but it's Ishii, and even Naito would not be one of them, but Sonata, you just take 7 names that are on that mid card, and you just made them evaporate. The cards wouldn't be as fun, things wouldn't be as good. But you could also sit there and look and go, okay, well, if they make the right moves with some of these other guys like Ren Narita and some of these other guys that are on the come up, it's you go, well, by the end of the year, things still aren't great, but they're still in good position. Can you say that about AEW? Can you say that about All Japan? Can you say that about almost anybody else? Really, with the exception of WWE, the answer is no. I mean, can you imagine taking 7 middle guys out of Ring of Honor right now? You know what I mean? What do they have in their pocket? You know what I'm saying? So it's
I think we've seen this in Noah before, And we've seen how they've tried to get over some of their young talent and young lions. And as talented as some of those guys have been, like Kiyomiya and Nakajima and even Kino, they've had trouble translating them to the office or to the audience because they don't have that same basic young lion structure that New Japan does that endears them to the fans from the time that they're, wrestling prelims. It is a different thing, and you're absolutely right.
No, and they should be the first step, like of what is, if you want to look at mimic somebody as far as how to run a business, how to create guys, it's easier said than done, but those should be the first step. And it's okay, well, what comes next? It's like where DDT and Big Japan have been, it's a completely different style of thing, and a completely different type of setup, but they've consistently created people. Now, granted, again, it's completely a different type of thing, but it's they've created more stars than, anybody from All Japan or Noah combined, people look at the amount of buzz behind some of those guys, like the Giros and guys like that have come up over the last couple of years.
Yeah, Dragon Gate's been really great at that too, actually.
Yes, and that's, and I lose track of them, unfortunately too often. They've gotten lost in the mix. So over the last couple of years, I've really, no fault of theirs. I've just, because of time, had unfortunately fallen out with them. But for years they were, again, they come up, they get a young boy gimmick, and then that young boy gimmick, they get drafted to a group, and now you're in your group, and now things go from there, and things just keep moving and keep, churning on. That's why I think too, those groups are important. Some people blow Chaos off or blow off the Bullet Club or whatever, but it's that's when you utilize those groups correctly, that's where those groups really benefit, because you do have 7 guys in there, and you might have 2 young ones, but you got 5 older guys who can show these guys what to do and how to work it and be out there at ringside for their matches all the time, even after the young boy system is over. It's you can still, look how many times you can be a second forever. You can never stop learning. So it's that type of stuff I think is still really, really important. I think New Japan does a great job with that.
So before we go too far deep down the rabbit hole, and this has been great. I almost feel I'm man, we could have done a whole podcast with just talking about New Japan with you. But your favorite New Japan match of all time?
I was trying to think, because there was the Muto Hase one. I mean, there's just, God, there's so many. Was it Nakamura? I think it was Nakamura and Tanahashi. I got to go back and see what it was, because my brain doesn't work that well anymore. But I know they had one that I thought was the greatest match I think I had ever seen to that time. So I'm trying to think of what dome show that would have been. Would that have been 9? I can't remember.
2009?
Where he came out dressed as Strong Style, Liberty or whatever the hell it was, King of Strong Style.
Man, I think that might have been 2009, but I can't remember specifically.
Again, I'm horrible sometimes with the dates and stuff like that, because I'm just burnt and I'm getting old and everything. And it's just but I think, that Tanahashi and Nakamura, just pick any of them and they were awesome. But I know they had specifically one that was fantastic. Muto and Hase too, and I'd have to look up the dates. It was October of 91 or 92. It was around that time. Probably would have been 92, because I think Muto may have been in America in 91 at that time. But they had some, that was the blade job matches, the 10 on the Hase scale of blade jobs, which were incredible. Those matches as well too, I think they were awesome as well. I'd probably say it's probably something like that. I'm going to end up looking back at my notes after this and seeing all these great matches that I hyped up, from over time. There was one, there's so many, there was one that Milano Collection AT had a match with Finn Balor, or with at Prince Devitt at the time, and I swear it was the best sub 10-minute match I've ever seen in my entire life. It went 9 minutes and 50 seconds, and it was it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think that was the best of the Super Juniors match. I think the match you're talking about between Nakamura and Tanahashi is from Wrestle Kingdom 2, 2008, which was fantastic. But one thing that's funny...
2008!
Yeah.
Damn. It's 11 years ago now.
And you mentioned the Hase and Muda series, which it's funny because, you know, there's that famous Muda scale match, but they had one match the year prior where Hase bled, and I think he bled more than Muda the next year, the more famous one. And I think it's just –
it's like a competition to see who could, like, lose more plasma.
Yeah, I think more people saw the Mudo scale match, and so that one became famous just because of the tape trading. But, like, now that we've got New Japan World, I've seen that Hase match from 91, and I'm like, he definitely bled more than Mudo the next year. Like, it's kind of crazy.
It is, and I love that. And I love juniors, too. It's like, I know a lot of people are always like, because you ask the old heads, and they're all right, you know, but it's like, you know, you got to go back and watch this Choshu match, or you go back and watch this Maeda match, or you go back and watch this Tenru match or whatever. And it's like, as much as I like those big guys with the black trunks on, you know, like Sasaki, you know, even when he came up and stuff like that, it's still the colorfulness and the flash of the junior heavyweights. Like, I mean, Liger. That's the other thing, like throughout the 90s too, it's like we're so lucky now that every day we seemingly get to see a 4-star match, like from somewhere in the world and stuff like that. But like getting those tapes, like the Sky, I remember like hearing about the best of the Super Juniors. I'm like, I gotta get it, gotta see it. And went to a local show, and they didn't have that, but they had the Road to the Super J. Oh, no, that's what I was looking at. I was looking for the Super J Cup because that had just happened and everything was buzzing about that. But they had the Road to the Super J. And I think that, I'm not sure if that was like the first time I had an appreciation for Lance Storm, but like there was that tag match for the War International Junior Tag titles with him and Yuji Yasuoka. And it was the first time I had ever seen like a roll through Boston Crab, double leg Boston Crab. Like, he would do it, like, in the WWF. Like, he would do the one-leg one, but, like, he just dropped and did, like, the double leg. And I can't remember who he was facing, but it was, like, those junior heavyweights, I don't think get anywhere near the credit. How as fun as they were from – and granted, some of them were, like, from Mikanoshu, but that Jushin Liger connection to bring in, like, the Naniwas and people like that, and to have, you know, all Kaientai, you know, Kaz Hayashi, you know, for all the career that he's had. Like, man, him as Shiru, I thought he was going to be a huge star in New Japan. And obviously he went in a different direction. He went to WCW and everything. And then I guess really kind of never went back. But it was just like, you know, some of those guys, some of those matches are fantastic. And they kind of get forgotten about and lost. Or they had the Chris Benoit, you know, kind of shadow over them. But, like, man, some of those matches from that era, from that J-Cup era through, like, 94, 95, 96 were just, man, that was absolutely amazing stuff too.
Yeah, so much great stuff from that junior division back then.
We definitely need to move on because if we spend all night talking about, you know, the old school, we'll be here all day. But I got to tell you,
and I apologize for the random tangents. No. I'm bad like that. I apologize.
We love this, and you know what? There's this thing where, you know, last year we were talking to people that were involved in the community, and there's so much thought about, like, with all the guys leaving, going to AEW, that like it was going to deplete the fan base, and that apparently it hasn't really affected business, you know, at least on the east side too bad. Obviously there's some effects here in the States, but you know, it seems like there's now this new emerging growing fan base for New Japan here in the West that like don't know this stuff. And like we've even had people reaching out to us and they're like, can you guys start recommending older matches because we don't know so much about this stuff. And I gotta tell you, Mike, I think you should write a book. That's no.
I'll help. You know, Chris Charlton, he wrote a book and he's good at it. You know, Alan Farrell should write a book. You know, I'll help with a book, but there's no way I could write one. Because I get too excited talking about this stuff. Some of that stuff, who the hell would edit the whole thing down? You know, it's the one thing about covering WWE every day. You know, and doing Observer Live every day, it just takes it completely out of you. So it's like to be able to talk about this stuff and start like being triggered with memories of like happy memories of wrestling. It's like, you know, it can be fun. And just the thing about AEW too, it's like with, you know, people that thought New Japan was going to be hurt by any of those guys leaving, like obviously Kenny Omega hurt, but like you look at the Bucks, and the Bucks have been doing the same thing in New Japan as they were doing when Rocky Romero was teaming with Kozlov. Like, it's the same four-way matches, and that's not their fault. It's the division, and it's how they look at it and everything else. But, like, Cody didn't matter. Like Adam Page years from now would have mattered because obviously Tanahashi liked him and a lot of people like him and deservedly so. But like nobody was going to be hurt by them leaving. Like again, Omega's a different story. But like from there, it's like unless you're just a fan of Kenny Omega or just a fan of the Young Bucks, like why would it hurt the business? And if you are a fan of those guys, you probably saw them there and got into the style of what was going on with some of those other guys. So like, you know, that's one where there's always the sky is always falling. I've seen that one with the Bullet Club a lot, you know, over the years too. They're going to kill it. They're going to kill it. They're going to kill it. And I'm not ever agreeing with all the decisions they made, but like, just stand back. Like you have to give them some room to breathe and you have to give them the benefit of the doubt because with the decisions that they make, because until they start striking out, you know, they usually get on base and they're usually driving in runners. So it's like, you know, that stuff about like them leaving is going to cause all these problems the same way where it's like, well, New Japan's got to work with AEW. Why? Like they don't have to work with Ring of Honor. They don't have to work with anybody. Like, exactly. So it's like, I don't know. And there's, again, that can spiral off into other things about business and, you know, what they really need as far as learning, you know, American business and American cultures and how to announce shows without giving anything away in Japan. Like that's all stuff for another day. But like, you know, again, that a lot of that stuff is just like, again, it gets to be too out of hand with people like looking for, they want to be first to say something's going to fall.
Yeah. Anybody that thought that the Bullet Club was a problem probably wasn't around during the days of the Mackay Club. I'm just going to say that. But,
and like, and too, like it was a jarring thing, and it was true for a while. It was like, well, is this going to kill it? Because it was all new. But like, there was a time where like there were 2 title defenses a year, and like you know, Goto took the bullet on that. Like he had to be there. Somebody had to start losing, getting multiple chances, and he became that dude. Like, and they're just things that where it's like there was going to be a change, and they do rely on too much interference and all that stuff. But like, it's not going to kill the company.
Yeah. But let's get started talking about this G1 Climax action, something that's definitely not killing the company. So we had 3 straight nights in Korakuen Hall this past week that delivered some of the best matches of the tournament thus far. So night 5 was the first night that kicked off. The first matchup of the night was Kenta defeating Lance Archer at 12 minutes with the game over submission. What do you think about that one, Mike?
God, what was that? That was which night? That was
night 5.
Kenta Archer.
Yeah, Kenta
night
and
5.
Archer.
Okay. Sorry, looking at the paper here. What did I rank that? I ranked that. I thought it was. I gave that one 3.5. Let's say that was the opener of it. I thought it was okay, you know. But after seeing, you know, again, both of those guys going into that match had better matches than what they were able to put on together. But I think for 2 guys that had never seen each other before, I'm assuming, and had never interacted before, I thought they did a pretty good job. And I think, again, it was, you know, for both of them, it's a good stand pat, you know, at that point because, you know, Archer had already had the match with Ospreay that was, you know, great, but like I'm sure a lot of people gave Ospreay credit for that. I think they kind of snapped to attention in the match with Fale because we've got to give Archer a lot of credit for that. You know, it was like, you know, it was either going to be, you know, the whole bowling shoe of ugly, or if it was going to be all right, and, you know, because there was no chance it was going to be 5 stars, and it ended up being a little bit more than all right as far as those 2 banging into each other. And Kenta, it was like there was all the pressure of him coming into this thing of what's he still going to be like? Does he still have it left? Will he be motivated? Will he get hurt? It's like, you know, I think a lot of that was just kind of like nice storylines to banter about and play with, you know, but it's like once he got into it, you knew he was good. And then he goes into the match with Archer and it was, again, it was okay. And it was just, it was a good way to start the show. And they did a nice job. And again, a nice way for them to stand pat, both, you know, with their performances, you know, going forward.
Yeah, I thought it was also a really good way to open up the card. I also went 3.5 on it. You know, I thought, you know, Kenta, he's getting more confident with each performance. Lance Archer, this guy is becoming a star, super over with the Korakuen crowd, big Archer chants all throughout this match and not throughout the weekend. It seems like the New Japan fan base is not really taking to Kenta right now, getting a lot of boos and jeers, but Kenta has really been kind of soaking that in, and it's kind of like been boosting him. He's kind of feeding off of that negative response from the New Japan fans.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, and big props to Archer, who's coming into his own and getting so much love from those fans in Cork, and like obviously a very smart crowd, and they are just, man, like they're loving him right now. But I thought this was interesting. Archer, my overperformer of the A block, and Kenta, to me, I would say is my biggest underperformer. And that's not a knock on him because it's such a great block. Somebody's got to be the underperformer. And from what I know he's capable of, I would say I've been just slightly disappointed. I'm not burying him or anything like that. But with that being said, I thought this was an interesting matchup. I went about the same as you, Mike. I went about 3.5 on this. I thought it was really hard-hitting and really good. It was interesting to see the crowd so in favor of Lance Archer. And the thing with Kenta is, like, I think he's got a similar path. They keep making so many allusions to him and Shibata, and I'm seeing so many parallels between him and Shibata from when Shibata first returned from his absence, and the crowd wasn't taking to him either. It took time for him to earn that respect, and I think that's what's happening with Kenta. But this tournament is a big step in that direction because even if I think he might be slightly underperforming, his matches are still great, and they're booking him as a dominant force throughout the tournament.
Yeah, Shibata left. Like, and that's when people like Shibata left, and he went to Big Mouth Loud. New Japan was garbage, and this style is garbage. And it's not that long ago, but maybe it is that long ago now. Whenever they were going to rebuild again and do the whole thing with the Gracies, and they're going to bring the Gracies in, and we're going to bring back Sakuraba, we're bringing back Shibata, and it was, what? And there were a lot of fans, especially the smart ones, that went, wait, we already lived through this. Don't do this to us again.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening with Shibata was just the fact that he was just that great of a pro wrestler. And he, they played the image, and they played on people's fears, and he became their guy. And that outsider thing, that still matters. And to a lesser, different extent with Kenta, in that he bolted, he left Noah. He didn't leave New Japan, but he left Noah and went to the States and completely struck out there, and then is coming back. And it's not like people don't know that. And it's like, you're not our guy, because it's like, look at Shingo's response from the outside in comparison. It's like, there's a difference in being invited in, and there's a difference in when you are perceived to just have shown up. And even though it was Shibata, Kenta just showed up and just said, I'm in this thing. And there are going to be people that, from a wrestling point of view, no, we don't like you, and we don't like you facing our guys. And Lance Archer, for anything anybody wants to say about him or spitting on him or anything like that, he's been their guy over the last couple of years, one of their guys.
Yeah, and I think the big storyline with Kenta and Tanahashi right now, with Tanahashi kind of refusing to accept Kenta, I think that kind of plays into fans' perceptions. And if Tanahashi is not accepting this guy right now, then we're gonna be behind the ace and not accept Kenta right now. But like I said, I think he's definitely, he's not going to be 2005 Noah Kenta or even 2009 Kenta, but I think he is looking great, and he's starting to bust out some of his signature moves. He ended this match with the omoplata, that game over submission, was able to defeat Lance Archer here and get the big win.
Real good.
So next we had the battle of the LIJ tag team partners. We had Sonata versus Evil defeating Sonata at 18 minutes and 16 seconds. I thought this was a great matchup here. We can definitely see, both partners knowing each other. There's a lot of great counters to kind of their signature moves, and both of them trying to use some of each other's signature moves on each other as well. I went about 4 stars on this.
Yeah, I was just right underneath that. I said 3 3/4, just because it's like one of those things where, it wasn't excellent. That's like kind of my guiding line is like, A excellent, 4 stars, like that level. And it's like, it's almost there, and they're going to do it one day with each other. It's just, it's not quite there yet. And, again, that's also picking nits, because at the end of the day, it told a great story. And I thought Evil was going to win the match because he needed it more than Sonata anyway. Sonata's already got his title matches. Sonata's already been kind of shined up a little bit, coming out of the tag team with he and Evil. And, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot still between Evil and Sonata and LIJ as a unit, going forward. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of conflict between them. I can't believe they're all going to stay, happy singles members. It can't happen that way. You're going to have something. And so, they've done a good job setting it up, and like, Evil being the guy, everybody always has problems with Sonata, and they have the opportunity to put him in the Paradise Lock. Nobody can do it. Well, who can do it? His partner can do it.
Yeah.
He ties him up, and like, again, it's one of those things where, again, ignore the 3 3/4, you know, as far as like, you know, because it is a little bit of picking nits, and just, you know, at the bottom line, it was a really good way. Forget about the G1 to continue the story between those two guys.
Yeah, and I thought it was pretty interesting. You know, the build-up to this match, Evil kind of refused to do the LIJ fist bump towards the end of the matches, the multi-man matches. Yeah. But now that he finally beat Sonata, he was very happily, you know, ready to extend the hand out now that he got the win.
and the interesting,
and that's true. And I'm sorry, I want to sort of jump in here one more time, but unfortunately, because of time, I haven't had a chance to watch as many of the undercards in the post-show promos as I want to, and they are so important because of stuff like that, and being able, not just for now, but to lay the line to something in the future. Because, like, and Adam Summers say, like, I don't know how anybody thinks that this is going to go with Evil and Sonata one day, but like Sonata being booted out of LIJ is what he's thinking, and, you know, Evil standing there with Naito at the end, but like Evil being the one to refuse to do the bump, you know, that can be used later on down the line. And that's just one of those things where the layers of pro wrestling, you know, that stuff is so lost almost everywhere else. And it's one thing that New Japan especially does really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you touched on watching the undercards. Now, admittedly, we haven't seen every undercard, but the night prior to this match, you know, it was Evil who'd been unwilling to give the fist bump, but then Sonata actually ambushed Evil and tried to put him in the Skulls End the night before, which, you know, was really a shocking thing because that wasn't an action that anyone kind of predicted going into this, because it was all Evil being antagonistic. But you're absolutely right, you know, Jeremy and Mike. This match told a really great story. I was about the same. I was about 3 3/4. With me, I'm not a huge Evil fan, honestly, but I'll say this. In this tournament, he's having a much, much better showing and a much better tournament than he did in that lower end A block that he was in last year. And I thought that this was one of the better matches that he's had of the whole tournament, and the built-in story between him and Sonata. And they've just been doing a fantastic job here. I was surprised. I kind of, you know, maybe it's my bias, but Sonata's been having such a fantastic year. I kind of thought he would pick up the win here, but they kind of balanced the powers a little bit. And I feel like it's what you're saying, Mike. Like, this is going to implode at some point, but this is sort of like an appeasement to that for the time being, because they're showing Evil and Sonata on the same level for the time being. But we know one day there's no way that this can last between all these guys, as good as they all are, as competitive as they are. And this is just another, you know, little breadcrumb in a long book story that New Japan has, you know, for all these guys with LIJ.
So
Zach, you know, I was just saying, because Zach, and we're going to probably get to this too, but like Zach and Suzuki, same thing. You know, like, you know something's coming. Tanahashi and Elgin looked like it was going to be that thing too, until, you know, Elgin played himself out of position, where it was like, you know, you get your buddy, you know, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano style. It's like, you know, Owens and Sami Zayn. It's like, you know, at some point you can feel it coming. And with Evil and Sonata, and with, you know, Zack Sabre Jr. and Suzuki, it certainly seems like that's what they're setting up for.
And you know what, like, and we'll move on to the next match, but that's so smart. I mean, just look at some of the classic All Japan booking. You've got your Tenryus and your Jumbos. You've got your Kawadas and your Mizawas, you know. So, I mean, we've seen where and even in New Japan, you know, like the early tag teams of guys like Muto and, you know, like Chono and things like that. So, I mean, this stuff can't last forever, and it makes total sense.
Yeah, and, you know, one thing I'm hoping for is, you know, I hope that they kind of follow up with this after the tournament. I hope they don't just, you know, stick them back in a tag team right away after this. I hope they kind of explores a little bit, give them some more kind of singles options, and just don't stick them right away back in the tag division and have them win the tag title so quickly.
Well, I tell you what, if they do, and I don't think they're going to win the tag titles, but if they do decide to stick them in a tag team together, you bet that implosion is coming by the time the tag tournament rolls around, and there's one of the matches on one of those dome show dates. You know what I mean? It's just because, like you're saying, like, if you're going to put them together, you can't just put them together and not have anything. You can't just put them, slap them back together, and they're just going to be losing contenders in the mix. That's impossible to me. They got to be angling where they're going to be bumping with each other on January 1st or 2nd or 4th and 5th, whatever the hell the days are now. 3rd and 4th, I don't even know anymore.
The only thing with all that is it really just depends on whether they can build build and draw more money long-term off of a split versus the amount of money that they're pulling in with LIJ as a unit, which is for them for the last, 2-3 years, maybe 4 years, astronomical. So, I mean, that's really the give and take of this business when it comes to that group.
That's true. But if you get rid of either Sonata or Evil out of that group, they're marketable on their own. Evil because he looked like he walked out of Spirit Halloween, and Sonata because he looks like a real life plush lion toy. All of a sudden, I mean, it just seems like as long as Naito is in that group, and that's the base of it. I'm not saying you can put anybody with them, but as long as you have one of those two guys with them, I don't think you're going to miss a beat when it comes to the merch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we've seen kind of the popularity that both Evil and Sonata get that they have on their own, the kind of reactions they get. So there's definitely something you could do with some of those guys in the future.
That J-pop boy band merch, you know what I'm saying?
So up next, we had Kazuchika Okada defeating Bad Luck Fale at 10 minutes and 5 seconds. I went 3 stars on this one. I thought it was, really good. Okada's always one of those guys that can get a decent match out of Bad Luck Fale. And I love that, he pinned Fale with that cradle pin that he pinned Omega with, and he pinned Jericho with. So I kind of like that they've been including that cradle as kind of one of his desperation signature moves now.
He did, but they kind of pooped the bed with it at the end, just by not having it look so smooth. So it ended up that kind of killed it there to me. Kind of lost Fale at the end there. Just it didn't look smooth, and I didn't like this match as much as a lot of people. Okada did, I think, as much as he could. But the thing is, they've had better matches too, in my opinion. I gave it just 2 stars. It was average. It was your average Fale match. And I know that it probably reflects a little bit badly upon Okada, but I thought it went on for a little bit too long, especially because of the way the ending was. It just didn't do it for me. It was one of those Fale matches. That's as simple as that. I was not liking it as much as a lot of people did.
Yeah, the funny thing with this is out of all the matches over these 3 nights, I feel like this one I remember the least. I don't remember it being bad. I don't remember it being good. I just remember it being straight mids, literally. And these guys had a match. When was that? New Beginning this year?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, or New Japan Cup, one of those two. I can't exactly remember, but I thought the match they had earlier this year was fantastic. And we've said it on so many occasions that Okada's one of Fale's best opponents. This match was, kind of by the numbers. It was, the same spots you're used to seeing from them. I will say this, though. Give me a Fale who's putting in an effort, who's having just average matches any day over the Fale we got last year in the tournament. So I'm fine with this. I know that might seem that's a battered girlfriend who's putting up with bad behavior from a boyfriend who's not as bad as what they had before. That's how I feel with Fale. It's this might be bad, but it could be I know it could be way worse. So
I like the gimmick from last year in a way, in that it was definitely new and different. It was obnoxious, but it was, in some ways him getting DQ. I didn't like all the outside interference DQ, but him losing, by DQ. I thought that was an interesting way to do it. It's just, him just motivate. Again, I know he's got to have the right opponent. It's not exactly like he's super slim and svelte and super athletic or anything like that. So you need the right person with him. But there are just some times where he can get it out of gear, and there are some times where he can't. Where this year in the G1, I'm surprised he actually got the spot. Because anybody could be doing what he's doing right now and just trading L's. And be, again, last year was something unique and different that kind of, suited him. This year he's just a dude, and there are other people that could be, to me, in these matches, putting on better ones. Because as good as he could possibly be, he's still just not going to be that type of athlete that I want to see, in 10 matches over 20 days.
Well, here's the thing with Fale. If Fale goes throughout this tournament with a major losing, record, and he's never really had that aside from last year, and most of that was by booking design, but if he ends up with a major losing record, this might be the last of Fale in the tournament, at least for the foreseeable future, with how stacked the roster is. On the other hand, I got to tell you, I think he's going to upset some people towards the end here, and they're setting that up right now. He's taken far too many losses. This is a guy who usually ends with like 9 to 10 points average, and he's probably not going to end up with anywhere near that. So he's going to probably be playing major spoilers somewhere near the end here. And, you know, our listeners should keep their eyes and ears open for that.
And, you know, I think in this match, Okada did do a good job of kind of making him look like a threat. And, you know, commentary, you know, helped too with the story of him. No, he wasn't pinned or submitted last year. And typically, I think the last 2 G1s that he beat Okada, and just how, I think their record too, you know, Fale is one of those guys that can beat Okada. And so just the fact that Okada was able to pin him here, it wasn't a count out or a DQ or anything. I think they did a great job on commentary kind of telling that story. And Okada, you know, just being the master that he was, made Fale look like a monster and, you know, try to, you know, just make him look as big of a threat as possible.
Nice. Well, let's talk about the semi-main event here, a match that I loved, Hiroshi Tanahashi and Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, we had Hiroshi Tanahashi defeating Zack Sabre Jr. at 14 minutes and 36 seconds. What do you think about this one, Mike?
That was, other than the main event, and in some ways even more than the main event, that was my favorite match of the show. You know, it was excellent. Give it 4.25 snowflakes, 4.5. I don't know. I'll take 4.25. Zack Sabre Jr. is so great, and the tantrum he threw at the end too. I mean, I love Zack Sabre Jr. I know a lot of people look at him and look at his body and go, "How can I take this guy seriously?" Because watch him. You know, he'll tie you up in knots. He takes bigger guys. He makes them look stupid. And the one thing about him is he can be punched in the face and be hurt. He can be moved because he is so light. So it's not like they don't play into that. It's not like they you know, treat him as some like dense ass dude that nobody can like pick up and move like he's Orange Cassidy or Joey Ryan or something like that. Like, no, that plays as part of the story. And I've gotten far, far more interested in him over the last couple of years as I started to kind of like just get into him more. And, you know, him and Tanahashi are great to play off of each other. And I think you knew the way this thing was going. And then obviously Zach went into the Garden and everything with the story they've been telling between these two. I think you figured that Tanahashi was getting the win. It was just going to be a matter of how. And then you see how, and then you get the reaction to it from Sabre afterwards. And I just thought it was great. It was Tanahashi, the great old pro, and Zack Sabre Jr., who's a perfect foil, you know, because he's such a unique, again, he's got a very unique style. And that folding off of Tanahashi, I think it was wonderful. And again, I think the athleticism and the overall story of Ibushi Ospreay certainly carried the night and everything, but I do have a real soft spot for Tanahashi and Zack Sabre Jr. as far as it being my quote-unquote favorite of the night.
Yeah. Tanahashi and Sabre have so many excellent matches with one another. Going back to the New Japan Cup last year when Sabre just completely obliterated Tanahashi, and then this year Tanahashi kind of getting that surprise roll-up in the New Japan Cup, and then kind of culminated, like you said, at the Madison Square Garden card where Sabre was able again to kind of tap him out in the middle of a sold-out historic arena. You kind of had to figure that, you know, that was what, you know, kayfabe, you know, shelved Tanahashi. And it's real interesting, this whole idea of Tanahashi being like the savior of New Japan and Sabre kind of being the guy who's like, I'm the only real throwback to true strong style. And now he's starting to proclaim that Inokiism and strong style is dead. And, you know, now it's Sabreism. It's the evolution of that original style. He's taking it to further heights. So I really, really enjoyed this match. I thought both guys obviously were incredible, but Sabre just was obliterating Tanahashi. And then out of nowhere, Tanahashi was able to you know, secure another roll-up, and it was, you know, a replay of what we saw earlier in the year during the New Japan Cup. Maybe he slightly was a little bit more winning by the skin of his teeth than he did during the New Japan Cup, but I thought this was a fantastic match. Obviously, I didn't think it was the match of the night, but it might have been my personal favorite match of the night. I loved it.
Yeah, I love this match as well. I also went 4.25. You know, Tanahashi and Sabre, they are great opponents for each other. I thought this was another excellent match from these guys. And I love the story that they're kind of telling with Sabre here in this tournament, where he seems to be kind of getting out-wrestled. We saw that in the Sonata match, and then we saw it here again in this match. where Tanahashi was kind of out countering him throughout most of the match and kind of getting the upper hand over him and kind of be able to, out wrestle the wrestling master and pull off that quick cradle on him.
Yeah, and it's interesting too with Sabre. At the end of the match, both these guys came in 0-2, so they had a lot to prove. I mean, it was a big kind of like, crossroads match for them in this G1 Climax. And for Sabre to go 0-3, I don't think anyone expected that, especially how great, he's done in these tournaments in the past. And then he had an entire 1997 Jericho meltdown at the end of the match, which was classic. But
and that's too. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say the way they build these feuds up long term. Guys figuring each other out match after match. It's such Kings Road style booking. Like, I love it.
Yeah, and how they, again, too, and it's like it plays together, but it also plays apart because you had that looming presence of Suzuki didn't make it in, and now he's seeing his guy just take L after L after L. And
yes.
you see, where Zack Sabre Jr., like you talked about, he's dominated Tanahashi over time, and Tanahashi has closed the gap, not only recovered from the injury, which you quote-unquote gave him, as far as wrestling terms goes, but not only is doing that, but is now starting to match you and then just beat you and embarrass you. And, on top of that, you're 0-3, and the announcers are telling everybody that, yeah, you could reel off 9 straight wins, but that's never happened before, and it probably won't, and good luck because you got Fale tomorrow. It's just like everything about, the entire story, how it's played, and, again, it's what old pro wrestling used to do so well in that, yes, you may have lost to this guy because you're starting to pull away from that feud, but you're still semi-linked to him as you, again, the highway is wide open for Zack Sabre Jr., not just with Suzuki. I keep hinting at that, but whatever it's going to be, because it's not going to be Tanahashi for the rest of the year, certainly. So it's what story are they telling right now with him? And we'll have to see, because he may go on a little bit of a run where he starts to get in the mix again and then gets tripped up at the end. We'll have to see.
Yeah, definitely some great storytelling here. And, I got to think that, one of these guys that have beaten him will probably be, a future challenger for the Rev Pro title, probably at the Royal Quest show coming up here August 31st.
It's funny.
Well, and I hate to it's not like I want to jump ahead or anything like that, but it's earlier on, you mentioned Kenta about what's going to be happening with him down the line. And you look at his last 2 matches that he has in the tournament, and they're against Will Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. And I'm not, again, you can't micro book everything down, or can you? I look at those and I wonder, okay, what dates, are going to be announced for that tour in the UK that are going to come from this, and Kenta making his first UK post-WWE UK appearances.
Yeah. So let's talk about the main event now. We had the Golden Star Kota Ibushi defeating Will Ospreay at 27 minutes and 35 seconds. I thought this match was incredible. This was a masterpiece, man, with both these guys, working over each other's injuries. We had the whole injury scare with Ospreay and the neck stinger and being removed from the multi-man match the night before, and being questioned whether or not he'd be able to make this match, but he was cleared to wrestle in this match, and it was a phenomenal match. And these guys are master workers, and both of them, Ospreay working over Ibushi's ankle and Ibushi working over Ospreay's neck. This was just an incredible match, match of the year candidate. I thought this was way better than the Wrestle Kingdom match. I went the full 5 stars on this thing.
My hand cramped up, and this has been the case over the last couple of days. I keep wanting to write that 5th star, and I don't. And you know what? In some ways, I'm glad I didn't, because I would have been questioning it the next night, and I would have been questioning it the next night after that, because these last main events have been so fantastic. But I went 4 3/4. I don't fault anybody for saying it's 5 and saying it's legendary and classic and all that. I cannot argue with you. They are 2 experts at what they do. I think they did a great job telling the story of Ospreay and protecting Ospreay, well, quote unquote, protecting Ospreay's neck, in the story of Ibushi going after it, but he can't really land it on it, in the way he wants to. I thought they did a good job, and Ospreay played as good of a job as Ospreay has ever done playing defense and trying to protect his neck. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I think he did. I thought he did a really, really good job that way. And then obviously Ibushi got to him, and it was, again, they are just two amazing horses. And they, again, over the last couple of nights, they've been amazing. But no matter what you thought about Moxley and Ishii or anything else, or Okada and Ospreay, Will Ospreay is, and I'm not even the biggest Will Ospreay fan. I'm certainly no Dave Meltzer. I'm certainly no, the people that have touted Ospreay for years. I'm not in love with him like a lot of people are. With that said, it's really hard to think that there's somebody else who's not the wrestler of the year so far this year. I mean, you see it in this tournament. You saw it with Archer. You saw it with Sonata. You saw it in this match with Ibushi. We'll talk about it later in the match with Okada. He's like Okada. He's wrestling different guys, doing different things, and still staying true to himself, still doing ridiculous things, Will Ospreay type things in the matches, but he's melding them to who he's facing. And I think he's done an amazing job this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in love with this match. I thought it was so surprising how in the beginning it was a little bit slower paced than I'm used to from both these guys. But not too surprising given the injuries that both of them had, and that played so much into the story with them trying to go after the ankle of Ibushi and go after the neck of Ospreay. But then once that last 10 to 12 minutes hit, it just started firing up, and I loved the callbacks to the match they had at Wrestle Kingdom earlier this year, especially
the slaps in the face.
Yeah, the slaps when the Tree of Woe, that just really brought the match to a new level for me.
Yeah, and just the way that Ibushi was just crouching down and looking at him in the face,
he's like, "I got you, bitch."
Yes, that's so awesome that they do that again, because it's I forget sometimes about stuff like that. I'm not good with every recall, like some people are, but that one I remember. As soon as they went to the Tree of Woe, it's oh, okay, this is great.
and then how about the hidden blade to the front? That he did the back elbow
unexpected
to the front of instead of the back of the head. That was crazy.
I love that. That was really really good as well too. That was just now I'm going to end up by the end of this giving it 5 stars. They're just so good, again, so athletically, and just what they're willing to put themselves through. It's just something else. They're really fantastic match.
Now, here's the funny thing. Good friend of the show and friend of ours, Rich Latta, he's convinced that these injuries, quote unquote, are works, and that it was all built to basically build the story. I can't confirm or deny this, but either way, this match was fantastic. And
look, I'm not saying Will Ospreay. Look, they're it may have been played up a little bit, but Will Ospreay gets stingers getting out of bed in the morning. It's amazing. Him, Naito, Tanahashi. All of these guys are together with duct tape. They really, really are.
Here's the problem is I'm the same way, but I don't even work. So I don't understand it at all. Terrible health. But no.
That's from not doing enough work. I think that's how that happens.
Ibushi and Ospreay, man, when they started going towards past the 25-minute mark, I was like, oh my God, are they going to a draw? They really started to get me. But the head drops that Ibushi did on Ospreay, especially when he countered that hidden or the Stormbringer and dropped him on his dome, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that was the point where he hit a Michinoku driver.
Yes.
And dropped Ospreay right on his neck.
Ugh.
Man, this stuff was vicious, but ultimately Kota Ibushi was able to pick up the victory, bring these guys at 1-1 apiece, which was incredible. Ospreay surprisingly going 0-3 at this point in the tournament.
No, he beat Sonata.
Oh, that's right, he did. So he was
1-2.
1-2, which is still a bit surprising for, I would say, a lot of our listeners' brackets. But this match was incredible. I was 4.5, but man, after we're talking about it, I'm like, I might need to go a quarter star higher.
Yeah, and then Ibushi just, using the Bomaye knee in honor of Nakamura, just drilled Ospreay with that Bomaye towards the end, and then followed.
Oh, God, that looked so good, too. Yeah, I thought that was excellent. Yes.
Yeah, and then followed up with the Kamigoye knee and just drilled Ospreay with that thing, got the big win there.
And one last thing I want to say, the commentary team, although they're always excellent, for some reason they especially stuck out during this match, just drawing back on the history of these guys, the history they have together, but their history coming up in the pro wrestling industry, their training, their background. They've been doing such a fantastic job of that throughout this tournament. Like I love, that's something that adds so much of a layer to the New Japan product. And yeah, this match was incredible.
And this is a picking of the nits for me. I know it is, but I would have ended it after the Bomaye knee. And I get why they did it with the V trigger, to put the exclamation point on. But like I thought that knee was so good that you could have counted the pin there and not missed a beat with it. Again, I understood why they did it. I really would have loved it if he just had pinned him with it right then and there.
I agree with you, Mike. When he hit that Bomaye knee, I was like, oh my God, that needs to be it. That needs to be it. He hit it so perfectly, and the crowd was just roaring. And I love that the crowd is doing that yow when he's getting ready to hit the knee, just like they did for Nakamura. And yeah, he drilled Ospreay with that Bomaye, and I was like, I would have been perfectly fine if he ended it right there.
Well, Mike, if they had been up to me after they botched that Spanish Fly last year in the match with Marty and Ospreay, they would have ended the match right then and there and called the audible.
Well, that's Well, good point.
All right, so now we're going to move on to Night 6. And Night 6 opened up with Shingo Takagi defeating Taichi at 14 minutes and 44 seconds.
Can I talk about this match first?
Go for it.
I love this match. I didn't expect to love it at all. I really didn't. Like, obviously, like, we've come around quite a bit on Taichi, especially during this tournament. But, man, him and Shingo delivered. I just want to leave it at that. Him and Shingo delivered. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this was a great match. We had another red-hot Korakuen Hall crowd. And, for anybody that's been questioning why Taichi is in this G1 tournament, they need to watch this match. There wasn't as many of the normal Taichi shenanigans in this matchup. And he was in there with Shingo, who's, all business. And I thought both guys worked really well together and delivered a great match. I went 4 stars on this.
I gave it 4 as well. I thought it was excellent. I think Taichi is like a WWE like B show pay-per-view, in that if you hype it and you got all these expectations and you're building it to something big, you're probably going to be disappointed. But when you take that away, like, don't have the match with Jeff Cobb for the Never title. Don't have the match with Naito, supposedly in his hometown, that's supposed to be so great that goes for 20-something minutes. Don't have him face off against whoever it is in a big singles title match. We've seen it. It usually doesn't work. At least it certainly doesn't work for me. And it doesn't resonate enough for you to keep moving it forward. But when you take that pressure off, when you're not expecting as much, and you got Taichi there, he ends up having these matches like that open the show with Shingo. And granted, yeah, it's Shingo, but it's like, it kind of hit me where it's like, if I'm not expecting anything, Taichi's fine. As soon as I have to expect something, then it kind of gets pulled back in a little bit of a way. It's like, in some ways, it's like not Maybach, but why am I brain logging right now? In Suzuki-gun, veteran Noah. Kanemaru, thank you. Where it's like, if you, again, a little bit of a different situation, but if you said, you're probably going to get Kanemaru and we're going to put him against Ospreay, or we're going to put him against he's going to have a pedestrian match. It's probably going to be okay, but it's going to be like, you stick him in a match early on in the show against a guy that is needing to help to work or something like that, and like, it flows so much better. It feels so much better. I don't know what the right plan is for Taichi. I still think he needs to be, I think the whole tag team situation that's been this way for years needs to be, rectified and come to Jesus a little bit here. And one of the ways you can do that is have Taichi and somebody that can really feature Taichi more. I get that he's in, believe me, I'm not throwing up what you're saying, Jeremy, about him being in the G1. I'm fine with him being there, but like, him as a singles competitor who occasionally gets these title matches and everything, like, it never seems to work out. But like, again, him and utilizing some other role where there's still some shine on him and he's not just buried underneath or anything like that, I think that's the way they need to go.
The funny thing is, I love this analogy that you brought up of him being like a B-level pay-per-view for WWE, because you were like, if you lower your expectations, like, the booking doesn't have to make sense, but you just watch it for what it is. And if you're disconnected from the product, like, there's some good matches out there. That's Taichi all day. Like, there are times where like I'll buy in as a fan and I'm like, you know what? Taichi's on a tear right now. And then he'll have a snoozer, and I'll be embarrassed as a fan to be like that guy who went on my podcast and told everybody how good Taichi's doing, and then he'll have a snoozer. And then other times he comes out here and does this with Shingo. And, it's just like a WWE pay-per-view. I'm like, I don't know why people like that product, but there are definitely people who like it. And there are diehards who will defend Taichi to the death, like for real. But what I love about this match with him and Shingo is that in the beginning, he did start out with a lot of the shenanigans that we're used to seeing from him. And we've been seeing this lately, like where he's not too far delineating away from what he's done in the past. But then he starts calling upon all the Kawada references and, the stretch plums and the Kawada kicks and all that. And just building up all of this drama in his matches and going up against these guys who probably should be beating him, but who are having very difficult times putting him away. And it's elevating Taichi. Even in defeats, he's getting elevated throughout this tournament. And, aside from Archer, Taichi might be my most improved of the year for New Japan. And Shingo seemed perplexed the entire time. He didn't know what to do with a guy like Taichi because he's like, yeah, I've never really faced a guy like this, so I'm just going to, pumping bomber him until he dies, basically.
Yeah, and one thing I loved towards the end was that they used the last ride for a near fall because Taichi, he pinned Naito with that last ride. So when he hit Shingo with it, like, oh, man, I think Taichi might get it here. But then Shingo was able to come back and kick out of that and follow up the pumping bomber in the last of the dragon and was able to beat Taichi.
Also, do you think that there's a little bit of a story element because we're about to get Shingo and Naito very shortly, and the fact that Naito came up short against a guy who he's pretty much just dominated the last couple of years in Taichi, and Shingo was able to put him away with, even though he had some trouble, relative ease,
Well, yeah, interesting. Shingo has beaten the two people that Naito lost to so far. Shingo's beaten Yano and Taichi. So that's a little interesting wrinkle into their matchup.
And is that because Shingo's superior to Naito, or is it because he's been able to learn from the mistakes Naito's made and capitalize on that? What do you think, Mike?
I think it's a way to basically look at the year Shingo's had. Who's the only person that beat him in the Super Juniors? It was Ospreay. The whole thing we did was hype leading into that was this dude hasn't lost yet since he stepped foot. Now, granted, you can say that was the junior heavyweight division, but obviously Shingo is a heavyweight. He's in the G1. He's looked at as a hybrid, as much an Ospreay, if nothing else. He's there. And he's the newest guy in the group. And there's Naito, and you got Evil and Sonata, and they're doing what they're doing with each other and all that sort of stuff. And you have Naito, who has been tunnel visioned on Ibushi, and he's been tunnel visioned on the IWGP title, yet has dropped a couple of matches. I am sure that they are going to play that with each other, and I am sure whether they're going to actually follow through with it or not, and I don't think that they will, I think that they're going to probably play a little bit with control, with Naito and with Shingo of, Shingo feeling himself. At the very least, Naito under the impression that Shingo may be feeling himself. And I'll be interested to see, again, this is one where I do want to see some of the post and the pre-match, stuff leading into them, because it's like, again, it's so easy to play that story. It's so easy for Naito, especially because he's not a full baby face or anything like that, to be annoyed, to be whatever. And again, they don't do this stuff for no reason, and they don't give people wins and losses. They're always strategic. At least with the hope that they'll be able to be used later on down the line. You can always fix it later on down the line. But they always do these things to plant seeds. So they're not doing it for no reason. And I think you called it. He's lost to the two people that, that now Shingo is beaten. So because of that and because of the way that they usually play things, yeah, it's definitely it's gonna mean something. It's just a matter of what.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how they tell that story leading into that big matchup with those two guys. So up next, we had Jeff Cobb defeating Juice Robinson at 13 minutes and 35 seconds. I thought this was a good match, a lot of solid action. I went 3.5. I thought it was a good, hard-hitting match, but it lacked the drama and crowd reaction of some of the previous matches here in Korakuen Hall, especially the Shingo and Taichi match. But I thought Cobb and Juice worked well together and ended up having a pretty solid match.
Yeah, it's interesting with Cobb. When he was teaming in the best Super Juniors in the World Tag League with Elgin the last couple of years, it was kind of easy to set him up for these really big power spots that were really formulaic, and the fans ate it up and were real behind him. But now as a singles competitor, though he's been incredible, he's kind of had to like rest on his own laurels, and I haven't seen as much fan support as we did during those World Tag Leagues. It almost seems like. Obviously, it's tough because it's a G1 and you've got the best of the best. And so we're kind of seeing him like sink or swim. And he's done very well for himself. Obviously, we know he's here to kind of like eat some pins, and he has in the early goings here. But I think that I was a little bit surprised with Juice beating some top guys and then taking a defeat here. And obviously, it's G1. Anybody can take a loss to anybody. But this match was something really positive in the right direction to establish Cobb as a threat to anybody in this tournament.
Yeah, it's something with both Cobb and Juice. I think in my world, Cobb's got more upside, but I wonder where both of them are going to go and how high they're going to get. I think Juice, I was really excited, believe it or not, when he came over initially from NXT. It's like I really, everything about him said he had a lot of drive, and I actually liked him. The character in NXT was stupid, the CJ Parker thing, but I actually liked, and I thought, he obviously was super dedicated, and it was real serious when he was going into the dojo. That was like, okay, well, this guy, obviously he wants to be there. So it's a matter of whether he'll be able to pull it off, and he has gone so much further than I thought he could ever go, especially in the type of character that he's being. I think the only thing that ring entrance was missing in the match with Cobb was a pair of Charlotte Hornets, like old grandmama pump Charlotte Hornets colored Reeboks, because like that, again, he's certainly a peacock when it comes to his presentation, but I wonder where, what the ceiling is with him, because for right now, he still seems like he's that U.S. title guy. He's that upper middle card guy. I could see him having a spot every once in a while in this new era, getting a title match. Somehow you can work him into one over a 2-month build or whatever. But it's like, I don't even see him where Carl Anderson was at right now. When Carl was a player in the singles ranks. And again, this is not a crack against Juice, because I like him a lot. I'm not feeling him at a super high level, and I think Cobb's got a little bit more upside, but I wonder if the new baby smell is off to him somewhat too when it comes to fans, and that he doesn't need to have the right opponent. Again, we're going to have to see going forward, but again, I'm watching this match and I'm thinking it's like, okay, like Cobb in ROH or even Juice in ROH, he should be the world champion, or at least in the mix, in the championship mix. I know Cobb at least had a match with Taven, but they'd be in the title mix. In New Japan, I look at them and go, are you ever going to be able to really be rotated into that top 6? And like I said, with Juice and with Cobb both, because of his amateur credentials and his size and everything, you could do it. There was something about this match, and I know it doesn't really have anything to do with the match, but there was just something about it where I'm watching and going, there's something missing with both guys, and I don't know what it is, but it's just not clicking for me. And the match I thought was good. But again, it was a real nice match. It was a real good 3 1/4, 3.5, cool. That's about where it was at for me. But again, there was an overriding thing of I wonder what's going to be next for both of these guys when it comes to New Japan.
Well, I'll say 2 things. With Jeff Cobb, my opinion on him, he's a fantastic talent. But I think the thing that's missing from him is a killer instinct, or like a ruthless aggression, sort of like – you kind of compare him to your Gordys and, your Steve Williams and things like that, but he doesn't have that tough guy persona. He's very smiley. He's very I don't want to say millennial, but
he's kind of chill. He has the Rob Van Dam kind of vibe.
Yeah, he's real chill. And
Island bra type of thing, which, by the way, too, those other guys you mentioned really tall. He's really short, which is another thing in person where it can be, again, it's amazing in one way, but it's a little jarring in another.
Yeah, and I think that for a guy who comes in with a singlet, who's got this Olympic credential, who can suplex you all over the place, he needs to have that tough guy like Taz or, whoever you would name sort of persona. to be like, I think he should show us a different angle of himself. Now, with Juice, I think it's a little different because Juice, we've seen him grown from being a young lion to being a prelim guy to being this perennial underdog to being an overachiever, and now he's kind of like an upper mid-carder. And I agree with you. I think he's missing something, but I think that's by design. I think he's coming into his own, and I think this tournament is actually a big step in the direction, especially after the match he had with Mox where he shaved his head and is kind of he's not entirely non-flamboyant, but he's definitely more.
I like that.
Yeah.
That was a super touch. I thought that was a cool way to do things. I really did. That was good point.
And I think that this is a slow burn for him. And I also think for diehard New Japan fans, they're so invested in him in that, like, we're invested in the long-term build. Like, I think that fans have shown a lot of, like, we're being very patient with him because we realize that this is not a one-year build, that this is a multi-year build for him. And it's a little bit different in that I think that, like, a year from now, we're going to see a very different type of Juice, especially with him signing a contract and all that. I wouldn't be surprised if he is at that IC level by next year.
And, Josh, you took the point I was going to get ready to make. The thing with Juice, it's like a long-term kind of build they're going with him. I think he's constantly evolving. That first big win against Jay White for the U.S. title, and I believe that was in San Francisco.
At the Cow Palace.
At the Cow Palace. That was kind of a big kind of marker for him. And then, beating Cody at Wrestle Kingdom. He kind of has these big losses and then these kind of big wins. And we're seeing the character slowly change and develop. Obviously, the match against Moxley, that was kind of one of the biggest transformations of him, cutting the hair, cutting off all ties to CJ Parker and trying to wrestle a more brawling style. Like you both mentioned, now, he's still flamboyant with the entrance gear, but he's a little bit more serious with the in-ring work. And I think we're going to continue to see that character develop throughout time. And I think, like I said, next year, I think he's going to evolve again, and we're going to see a whole next level, I believe.
And my opinion on this, I think by the end of this tournament, he's going to have had a better tournament than last year. But the biggest thing is I think he's beating Mox. And with how strong they're booking Mox, that's going to be a huge deal. I think it's going to be what they intended with Cody, but it failed because of the time constraints and the injuries and all that. And I think it's going to be a big deal.
I was wondering how they were going to play that. I was wondering how they were going to play this, and I was wondering how they were going to play Moxley and Cobb. And, again, just because of the ROH stuff and the AEW stuff, I was wondering how everything was going to go down, but how things have kind of played out so far, I think you're right. I think that's the one thing that they were going to do no matter what was Juice is going to get the win over Moxley. And I agree with you 100%. I think, especially, again, because of the way these other matches especially have played out, I think you're exactly right, because I was wondering how the politics was going to be. I actually had Cobb and Moxley as a double DQ or a double count out. I had some sort of draw situation happening there so you could back your way out of it and be okay. The Moxley match I had, let me look actually here. Let me see, actually. I'm trying to figure out what I had. Can't remember from the preview show that Adam and I did. I can't remember who I had winning, but I think I may have had Moxley initially going over Juice Robinson. In fact, I probably did. But, the way things have shaken out, that's if one guy was going to beat Moxley, and again, because of the way this tournament's set up, most of their major players are in Block A. But you look at Block B where you have more foreigners and you have other people there. It's like, you know what, Moxley can get a win over Naito, and you could always explain that away or work that away or whatever it is, even though it's a big loss. But, like, Juice, a guy that you're going to be banking on for a long time, a guy that you want to keep happy because he speaks English and he's American and you want to be a cornerstone and not go over to that other group, him getting that chip against John Moxley is, that's probably at this point and probably how they designed it, the only way to do it.
Yeah, I think Juice is going to beat Mox on that last night, and then we'll get a U.S. title match down the line with Juice getting that title back.
Here's the interesting thing, too, is we were in Dallas. We got to be part of the media scrum. And I asked a question to Juice. And for those of you who haven't listened yet, that audio is still up on our website. You can check out the entire media scrum, unadulterated, unedited. It's awesome. But I asked a question to Juice about him not being presented in what my opinion was as strong as he possibly could be for the North American expansion. And he kind of took offense to that question just a little bit because he was like, I feel like I'm given all the same opportunities. And he's a guy that I think that I didn't mean offense by it. I think that they should be building off of, because I think he's maybe one of their most marketable North American stars. But I think that, you know, the win over Mox is going to be a huge elevating thing for him by the end of this. And if he does lose, I'll be very, very, very surprised. But let's talk about the semi-main event on night 6, Tetsuya Naito versus Hiroki Goto. 14 minutes. And
actually, we got to talk about the big upset.
Oh, you know what? I overlooked it because it was so short.
We had Toru Yano defeating Jay White at 3 minutes, one of the biggest upsets in the tournament. Jay White now goes down 0-3, 3 straight losses. All his Chaos stablemates are getting their wins back. This popped me. I did not see this coming. This was just hilarious.
Here's the funny thing is, I don't think they were mostly getting their wins back. I think aside from Goto, I don't think Ishii or Yano have ever faced Jay White in singles competition, but all 3 of them bested him. And so the fact that Chaos is out for revenge and out for blood against, the Switchblade, like, it's kind of an incredible built-in storyline. And I didn't think Yano was the one guy I didn't think was going to beat him. But, dude, he wrapped this up in 3 minutes. Like, this is incredible.
This has been a good place to burn it down for Jay White. You know what I mean? It's like after the way the year started, and you were already going to do, depending on how you look at this phrase, but you were going to cut his legs off a little bit because he was going to lose at the Garden. And, he's gotten it's not like he hasn't had big wins, this year or anything like that. But, like, this has been the perfect opportunity to give him a lot of humility, to give him a big kick in the nuts, the same way he likes kicking other people in the nuts. You know what I mean? It's like this was a great way, I think, to do it. And him whining, because I have seen a little bit of him whining backstage. I think it's been great. And his whole tournament's going to end. The B block ends at the Budokan. He faces off against Naito, and what's probably going to be a main event, because it's probably going to have a lot to do with what happens with Naito. And I don't know what's going to happen in that match, but I think no matter what happens in this tournament, it's a lot of it is just kind of putting Jay White on the back burner, doing something with him, giving people some wins against him that he can always get back later on. And it's a nice holding pattern to get to the last night where he's probably going to do something douchey, either, during the match or after the match against Naito. Again, if he doesn't get the win, I have a feeling he may do something deviously afterwards, and just, leading into the finals. So we'll have to see going forward. But Jay White is he's fantastic. And the match on paper was the shits. And it's like, I don't know, like, you think about Yano and how simple it is with comedy, and you think about how talented Jay White is and how great he is as a heel, and you go, but it's just something about it where it's like, you figured that match was going to suck. And it kind of sort of did, but they at least kept it really short and it was over with. But they are, it's kind of funny that, like, you take those 2 names and you stick them next to each other, and there is nothing natural about that.
Right. And that's the one good thing with the Yano matches in this tournament. If you're not a big fan of the Yano comedy shtick, they are keeping the matches relatively short, kind of getting in, getting out. Yano's playing the hits, pulling off the turnbuckle pads, trying to blows, trying to miss, doing all.
And look, we talked about, and I just want to throw this in there because I hear this every once in a while, especially with newer fans and fans that start ranting and raving because they've only been watching New Japan for like a minute, so they don't, their bearings aren't right with exactly how things will work, or at least what they're trying to present. There's a difference between Fale being there and shitting up the joint and taking O's as opposed to what Yano's doing. Yano serves as a night off, and I'm not saying that Fale in the matches last year didn't, but that's Yano's whole thing, is to put on a entertaining spectacle in the time that he's in there. He's going to probably get a roll-up win over Naito or over Minoru Suzuki. I mean, that's who he would do it to every year. The killer Minoru Suzuki. He rolls him up every year and gets a win. And they play that story year after year. But, like, that's what he's there for, is because Ishii can't wrestle Naito every night. And you don't want him to because they're going to kill each other. So it's like, that's why he's there. And I think some people – especially newer fans, they don't understand what it's about. And it's like, it's not about the comedy. It's not about the match rating. It's about these guys in real life. That's what it's about.
Yeah, Yano's there to kind of be like the bye week for these guys, like you mentioned, like the night off. But the thing is, though, with him, pinning guys like Naito and Suzuki and getting these upset wins, you never know who he's going to beat. So you kind of get on the edge of your seats for every near fall. You're like, is Yano really going to beat this guy? Like during the Shingo match, like I was losing it because I didn't want Yano to beat Shingo, and like he was coming so close with those schoolboys. So with those Yano matches, you just never know when he's going to roll a guy up and keep him down.
Here's the thing. You guys are both being way too dismissive of Yano right now. It's not about the star rating. It's not about the comedy. It's about the true ace of New Japan, Toru Yano. He is the best. He beats everybody, and he's my pick to win the B block.
#1 DVD sales.
No, I'm just joking. But in all honesty, like I did not expect this. The funny thing that I thought was so interesting was how Gato came out with this look of concern and worry on his face, and Jay White was so like lackadaisical. Like this was a gimme match for him.
Yeah.
And Gato was like, no, it's not. And, yeah, you mentioned earlier how the broadcasters had brought up how nobody has ever gone, after an 0-3 loss has gone undefeated for the rest of the tournament. And so in a way, if Jay White does go undefeated the rest of the time until the match with Naito, that's going to be a big feather in his cap, and that's what I kind of expect needs to happen to keep him in the runnings. Otherwise, he's going to be playing spoiler. But this is a compelling story. This is a really compelling story. And, a lot of people didn't like the Jay White arc last year with him, kind of using all the shenanigans and, the ref bumps and the low blows to win. And now he's from a deficit, and, like, we either are going to see him step up and, like, show the goods and, like, beat guys fair and square, or we're going to see him revert to what he's done in the past. And, yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what he does from here on out the rest of the tournament.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the semi-main. We have Tetsuya Naito defeating Hiroki Goto at 14 minutes and 15 seconds. I thought this was a pretty good match. I went 3.75, but for some reason, I don't know. I was expecting a little bit more from both of these two guys. You see Naito and you see Goto, and you expect, kind of a higher caliber match, and it was a good match, but I don't know, it just didn't hit for me.
You know what? Last year, I loved the Naito and Goto match, and it was probably like 3.5, 3.25, but it just resonated for me, and I don't know why, but I just liked it. This match was kind of the same way. I went about 3.5 on it. It wasn't standout, but it was very good.
Yeah.
It was real good, and I cut these guys a little bit of slack because it's night 6. We hear all the reports that Dave and all the different guys mentioned about, like, Naito being hurt and kind of, needing some nights off, that sort of thing. And I think this was as good as we could expect. Certainly these guys have a better match in them, but it's night 6 of the G1, and it's the semi-main event in Cork. And so it was fine. Naito won as I expected, and we go from there. That's my thoughts.
Naito's a fucking mess physically. I mean, he's a mess physically. He really, really is. And it's, again, just like Ospreay and just, again, all of them. Just Tanahashi, to look the way that he does, is quite amazing in itself. But, the thing with, and I had it the same way. I had it about 3.5, 3.75 too. The funny part is they've never had really good matches with each other, and they've never had great interactions with each other, ever. And again, it's not to the level of obviously like a Yano and a White, but it's like, it's kind of the same parallel where it's like, they, on paper, you could see, maybe this will make sense. They don't make sense with each other. And for whatever it is, they're just not a good fit. And they've never had a good singles match, either in G1 play or anytime, in title defenses, that they just haven't had them. Tag situations the same way. It's just, they just don't meld, they just don't meld well with each other. And even when Nakamura was in that mix and with Goto and stuff like that, I don't know what it is. It's not like it's oil and water or anything like that, but it feels like their limit is 3.5. It's going to be pretty good. Sometimes it'll be real good, but it's never going to be more than that. And that's what it was. It was just it was okay. And that's another thing too with Naito. And this is not, I don't know if he's taking nights off. I don't know. And I'm not accusing him of that or anything like that. But like the match with Taichi I didn't think very good at all. I thought it was, it was a little better than like an average match. There was obviously, say what?
With Naito?
The Taichi Naito match, yeah. I mean, I didn't think that match was all that great. I don't know if you guys did or not, but like, even the first match was one with Yano, but it's like, Naito is not, it's not like he's had dazzling performances. And he may be saving his body. He may be saving it towards the end. And I'm not blaming him for taking any nights off or anything like that. But like through the first couple of matches here, it's like I've been severely underwhelmed by Naito.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I've listened to Observer and so many other publications. They all really did not like the Naito and Taichi match. And I could totally see why, but for whatever reason, I loved it. I think Jeremy liked it a lot too.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. It was just one of those situations where I felt like all the shenanigans kind of played into the match and helped the story of the match. And I know the action that was in there I thought was pretty good. So I ended up really liking that match.
Yeah, it reminded me of like when you watch so many like Attitude Era like plunder matches and some of them don't land, but then sometimes in a vacuum they do. It reminded me of like that Raven versus AJ Styles match from 2003 during the TNA days where it just really worked. But that was my opinion. But anyone who didn't like it, I wouldn't bury them on it because, there's –
Are you accusing us of groupthink?
No.
The Observer?
I absolutely think like it wasn't their taste. But I just happen to really like it. But anyone who thinks that Naito's not having the greatest tournament of all time, I agree with them. Now, one thing that's interesting about this, I see a lot of criticism about Naito having a terrible tournament. But last year, until the end of the tournament, Tanahashi did not have a good tournament. And Naito is my pick to win the tournament, just like last year, Tanahashi was mine. And nobody was saying boo about Tanahashi having a subpar tournament until the end. And I think that's what we're getting out of Naito. I think he's, gonna, like you said, he's a mess physically. I think maybe some of the reasons why maybe these matches aren't as great. Mike, maybe you could weigh in on this. I think it could be like those old Pancrase gentleman's rules, like I'm not going to strike you on the ground sort of deals. Like these guys are like, hey, brother, I'm hurting, take care of me. He's like, all right, let's go out there and do what we need to do. And I think that's what this might be a little bit. But Naito and Goto was fine. It wasn't great, like you said, but it's fine.
That's it, yeah. And look, Naito was my pick to actually win as well too. And I was, I know that a lot of people were. I'm not sure where you guys. I can't remember where you guys landed on it, but a lot of people were looking at Naito and Ospreay, or not Naito, not say Naito and Ibushi as the final because it makes a lot of sense that way. I actually went with Naito and Okada just as a little bit of a swerve there because I think there are ways you can come back to Okada and anybody, but especially with Ibushi. So. Okada Naito was the way I kind of wanted to go in that direction. But, like, it's not a matter of – I don't know. I just think, again, it may be for him physically. I don't know what it is, but just everything – nothing has felt quite right with Naito in this tournament. Again, I'm not saying that the sky is falling or anything like that. It's just that everything has been a step off. And I get the comparison with Tanahashi last year, but this is – for some reason, this just feels different.
No, you're absolutely right. I think he's hurting way more than Tanahashi was last year.
Which is amazing because Tanahashi was hurting last. It's again all of this Tanahashi's elbow, even being anywhere near his body, his shoulder being on his body is amazing.
Yeah, but yeah,
we had a question here.
Oh yeah, that's right. We got a question from Facebook from Conrad Newton. He says, "Do you see Goto winning the B block after seeing the success of Kenta and the emphasis on the Shibata training regimen?"
Okay, I'll say no. I don't think Goto in 2019 could possibly win a G1, but I think that they are emphasizing the whole thing with Kenta, and the win over Jay White was a big deal. And I think that they see positive things in Goto, especially with him rebuilding himself and rededicating himself. But winning this, no.
Yeah, I don't think he's one of the guys that has a chance of winning the B block. I really think that B block's going to come down to, either Naito, Jay White, or Jon Moxley as the guys taking it.
We'll talk about it, but I've got some other theories.
What do you think, Mike?
Goto, it's not in the cards for him this year. And I think to see him in a unit with Kenta, if he's going to stick around and be there enough on the reg, and you want to have more of a Shibata, I would love that. I would love to see them as a team. Again, goes back to that tag team thing. You can put them in a main event somewhere, and it would be a goddamn main event. Like, this is not a main event of some cheap thing. You can build them up in a story, and you can have Goto and Kenta face off against, I don't know, whoever. Pick two people, and you're promised to see a fight. You know what I mean? Against whoever. So great, Tanahashi and Cobb. It would have been Tanahashi and Elgin, but that's a legitimate main event type of tag team. And so I wish they would do something like that with those guys, because it is necessary. And I do think they need to shake up the units as well too. You don't have to do a Dragon Gate or a Stardom and a whole redraft or anything, but I think Chaos and Bullet Club and they have gotten tired, and they have tried to. They put a little bit of a new coat of paint on the Bullet Club with the whole Guerrillas of Destiny and the shooters or whatever they were called last year. They did do a little bit of that, but to have a new unit in to rival Suzuki-gun and the age that they're at and all that stuff. Yeah, I would love to see something like that with Shibata, and those two would be perfect together.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners too have been kind of mentioning that and talking about a new faction. And I think they're kind of planting seeds with Goto and Kenta and Shibata, and with the LA Young Lions now competing in Japan. I think that would be a great stable.
Well, the best part about this match was at the end of it, the post-match comments where Naito said, "Oh, I see your new name is LA Dojo." He's like, everyone keeps talking about how you need to be revitalized, so you need a new character. Your new name is LA Dojo. That seems to fit. But as I joked there, Mike, I don't know if you heard it, but I would love to see Kenta and Goto, the throwbacks, versus the future pro wrestling, the Golden Lovers. That's what we need. That's what New Japan needs. Let's do it.
Oh, man. Did you do that with the Dome Show days, too?
Let's talk about
I don't know. I tell you, it'll be interesting when we get to the end of the year, too, with Omega having – and again, this will be interesting with the whole G1, too, because it's if you had any thought in your mind or holding open any door that Omega could be back – in New Japan calendar year, so going up to the second show on January 5th, it's if you think Omega's going to be there, it's well, who would he face? The obvious match is Ibushi. And especially if you're going to go with 2 days, so it's so you start to excuse him out of this tournament, and you start asking questions of okay, if it's him, does he win it and lose the briefcase? Is he the first one to do that?
Oh my
how
God.
do you play this thing? Because that's another thing when it comes to Ibushi, where it's that was another thing in the back of my mind where it's I don't know if you're going to see Omega back, but I'm not going to close that door. So him not being factored into the end of the G1, that's not going to shock me at all.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I love Kenny Omega, and hoping to see it come back, but. Yeah, you never know what might happen between now and January 4th and 5th.
I know what's going to happen. They're going to set up a match between Kenny and CM Punk. That's what's going to happen. But no, I'm just joking. But let's talk about the main event here. Moxley and Tomohiro Ishii, one of the best matches of the entire tournament.
Yeah, we had Jon Moxley defeating Tomohiro Ishii at 20 minutes and 30 seconds, and I love this match. I went 4-7-5 on this. Wild brawl, it's awesome strong style match. These guys brawling all over Cork and Hall and then getting back into the ring and just kind of working that stiff style, a lot of strikes. We've seen Moxley kind of utilizing that Regal knee, showing his signs of being trained by Regal during the FCW days and that rivalry they had back in FCW here in Tampa. I love this thing.
What did Batista say? Give me what I want. That's all. That's all. I think anybody just give. Ishii, give me that, and don't screw it up. Like, that's it. And they went out there and they did that. They slammed into literally from the time it started, they slammed into each other, and it was on from there. And it was unadulterated Moxley and Ishii, and I don't really know what else to say. Like, they did what they did, and they do what they do, and they gave me everything that I wanted. Almost. Like, again, of the 3 matches of the last 3 nights, the last 3 main events, I think I would shy away from this one being quote unquote 5 stars. But like, this may be my personal enjoyment of the last 3 nights. As great as Okada and Ospreay was, like that, I think this has been my favorite match of the tournament because it was so simple, and it was just so great. And again, a lot of it probably has to do with how much you like Tomohiro Ishii, and I like him a lot. So, yay to that.
Yeah, it was a beautiful, violent war.
Okay, here's the thing. I love Moxley. Well, I wouldn't say I love Moxley, but I've loved Moxley's run in New Japan. And obviously, aside from maybe Tanahashi, Ishii might be my favorite New Japan wrestler. So I was really, really looking forward to this, and they did not disappoint. But can I bring some criticisms to the forefront, some things that bothered me? Can I put my Jim Ross hat on for a moment?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Surely.
So our good friends over at the Super J Cast, they had pointed out that during the first 2 matches of Jon Moxley's G1 run, he took exactly 2 bumps. He took 0 bumps during the Taichi match and took 2 bumps during the Jeff Cobb match, which you can't criticize that too much because it makes sense for how they're booking him. But in this match, I was like, well, surely we're going to see him take a plethora of bumps because it's Ishii. And maybe that took me a little bit out of the match because, dude, he fucked up Ishii so much in this match. And yes, Ishii had his moments, but I was pissed as like a New Japan quote-unquote gatekeeper to see Ishii take so little offense during the first, 3/4 of the match. I understand that Ishii is an incredible seller, and people don't really give him enough credit for being maybe the best bumbler and the best seller in like wrestling today. But yeah, they made Jon Moxley look like $1 million. But every time Ishii would start to get the upper hand, it was like if you were playing like a make-believe game with a friend of yours as a kid, and every time you start to get the upper hand on him, he makes up a new rule how he's better than you, and so you have to sell for him. Like, that's what it was like. It was like Ishii was selling for Moxley the whole match, and I was kind of pissed about that. The other thing, too, is, like, I understand that there is referee discretion when these guys go to the outside, but at a certain point, there has to be someone who starts a count, and then, like, one of the wrestlers has to break the count. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what? The only reason that Red Shoes is not counting these guys out is because he's on the take, because his son is the young boy for Jon Moxley, and this is complete biasism because of the fact that he's helping elevate the career of his son. This is Danny Davis in 1986. Like, that's what's happening right now because those guys were out there for like 5-6 minutes at a time and not getting any countouts. I hated that part of the match. Other than that, the physicality, the intrigue, the crowd being so into it, aside from that, this match was literally incredible.
Moxley calling him Shooter is still the best part of these press conferences. Like, not right, Shooter? I thought it was great. But I hear I hear what you're saying, and I thought the same thing, except that I immediately just placed it into my frustrations over referees mean nothing in New Japan. Rules mean nothing most of the time. Like, to me, they've needed a market correction that way big time. And like, a lot of people love the over the top cursing that, like, especially like Lance Archer and Juice Robinson and guys were doing. It's like, you can't do that constantly. Like, they needed to be correction there. They corrected it, and we've moved on from it. Like, the tag team situation, the referee situation, there's a junior heavyweight tag situation. There's a lot that needs to be worked on with New Japan. They are absolutely not perfect. And the referee thing, it sticks out most like a sore thumb because it's just so obnoxious, and there's never consistency, and they're always made to look like big, gigantic, just the just pathetic.
I obviously I'm just being kind of facetious when I talk about Red Shoes being on the take, but you're absolutely right. There is an issue there, and I sort of felt.
No, but if you want to look at that as a sport, you're exactly right, because you have to stop and ask yourself, well, if he just counted this guy out in this way in this match, and they did this in this match, like, then why would he do this? Like with Tarantes, you know he's a dirty ref. You know what I mean? With the New Japan refs, it's like, you're just fucking idiots. You're like who, it's just very arbitrary.
Well, we're going to talk about the Zach and Fale match from night 7 here in a moment, but obviously you're absolutely right. When you look at one match where there's a count out and another match where there probably should have been one and there wasn't, that's a big deal. I feel like Jim Ross at, Fight for the Fallen, like I have to point out this stuff, and we shouldn't have to do that. But
well, one interesting thing though about the whole referee thing is those were 2 different referees. So it seems like
you're right.
Each referee kind of has their own discretion of when they start to count.
Their own strike zone?
What's that?
Their own strike zone?
Pretty much, yeah. So, Red Shoes will count more things go. You have Marty Asami and I forget the other ref's name, but they each kind of have their own kind of rule set of what they'll let fly and who's going to start counting when. So,
Jeremy, you're basically telling me that I'm right. Red Shoes is on the table. But, Jeremy, what did you love about this match? Because this match was really entertaining.
Yeah, I loved how violent it was. I just loved Ishii kind of, in the post-match promos the night before. Ishii said he wanted to wrestle a death match with Moxley, and that's what they did. They brought the chairs out. They had the chair spot there. They had the table spot. We had a flying Ishii. Ishii went on the top rope and dived
so great
on Moxley through a table. That was great.
I think we've been talking for a while. I want this Ishii Jr. run, and we got the first, literal, breadcrumbs of that. Ishii's definitely going to win Best of Super Juniors next year. I know this to be a fact.
And
it was such a ridiculous visual.
Yeah, it was. I just love watching that GIF just over and over again of Ishii just and splashing on Moxley. But, all the back and forth counters they were doing and the headbutt exchange and the forearm exchanges and Ishii kind of firing up at different points throughout the match, and just kind of seeing what Mox is made of in that last stretch of the match there. And he was hanging with Ishii and busting out some new moves and then hitting that regal knee. He was killing Ishii with those regal knee tremblers, and I just love this match.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. I'm an Ishii mark, and so it made me mad to see him get beat up so bad by Jon Moxley. But Moxley looked incredible here. And the funny thing is, I'm saying he looked incredible while he was still incredibly awkward with many of his movements. But it didn't matter because in this context and with this kind of physicality, it was so believable. And this is one of my favorite matches of the entire tournament. Moxley was just great. Ishii was great. And it was I loved the beginning when these two guys went nose to nose, and it was high octane for the whole entire 20 minutes. And, I was sad to see Ishii take the loss. And I'm like, who's going to beat Moxley at this point? I mean, basically that's what my thoughts are.
Yeah, and just, Mox going 3-0 now, and, the crowd just super hot the whole match. I mean, just the whole atmosphere, everything about the match. It was definitely one of the best matches of the tournament thus far, and I loved it. I'm curious to see, like you mentioned, who's going to beat Mox. But we do have a few questions here.
Toru Yano is going to beat Jon Moxley.
Actually, you know what? That's probably a good –
I betcha.
prediction. We got some questions here. First from our buddy Dan Coffin. He says, is there any possible way you see Moxley winning it all and headed to Wrestling Kingdom to face Okada?
No.
No. Him making an appearance. Again, this is one of the two the small cool things is not like AEW is running a show on the 4th or the 5th. So Moxley's going to have the chance to travel if he so chooses. And him going and working one of those shows, doing whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. It's such a nice addition to have. And I know a lot of people are looking at Kenny Omega, obviously for good reason, and fantasizing booking him, in that night or on one of those nights. But Moxley is in some ways almost as intriguing to me, because do we see him in the tag team with Shooter? What are we going to see out of Jon Moxley? But him winning this thing, no, there's just no chance of that, I don't think.
Here's one thing. So I don't think there's a chance of this because I'm totally convinced Naito and Okada are going to be facing on one of those two nights at Wrestle Kingdom. But recently, Dave Meltzer did indicate during one of the Wrestling Observer radios that the relationship between New Japan and AEW are not necessarily as bad as they had previously been reported. And so there are those people who are starting to speculate that maybe with Mox being such a big commodity over in AEW, maybe there's a chance that they end up facing one another. I don't know. I don't see it happening, but 2019 has been a weird year, man. You just never know.
Yeah, I think it's very slim chances. Like all three of us, I think we're all in agreement that Naito is most likely winning this B block, and I'm pretty firm in Naito winning the B block. So I don't think we're going to get the Mox Okada at the Dome. I do think there'll be a Mox Okada match probably somewhere.
Dude, there's
down the line.
There's money in that match.
But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, and there is, and that's where too. It's like, well, who does that benefit if he wins the G1? Okay, it's great for him personally to put that. I guess that he was able to win a bunch of matches like on a plaque on his wall. Like, I'm not trying to downplay it, but like from a business point of view. So then he's going to get the match at the Dome, which guarantees an AEW guy is going to be main eventing one of your matches on the Dome. And there's a possibility two of them are going to be doing it in case you have to rely on Omega and Ibushi to face each other. And so, yeah, you get the win over him, but, like, how does that benefit him? Again, how does that benefit AEW? You didn't have, like, again, Naito, people have been looking at a Naito quest for years, you know, so people have been looking at Ibushi in the quest for the title for years. There are people like Ishii that can't even get a title shot that people have been looking at. So it's like, I don't think it's great to fantasy book short term. It's great to have that kind of like that cool fantasy matchup between Okada and man. It's going to happen at the Dome. And it's like, I'm not saying it wouldn't be a big deal. I'm not saying I wouldn't like to see it, but like when you strip away, you know, the bells and whistles of it, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Right. And I think another thing you got to think about too is, going into the fall, AEW is going to be starting on TNT, and Mox is probably going to be a big part of that TV. So he's not going to really be available in the fall to, you know, do some briefcase defenses and build up toward Wrestle Kingdom. So I don't think that, you know, just thinking about that he would be available to be, you know, to win the G1.
So basically, you guys are telling me that this is early 2000s or early 2010s New Japan and TNA partnership. We're going to be getting like a Kurt Angle and Yuji Nagata type level main event at Wrestle Kingdom between these guys, essentially. But that was a joke, obviously. But we did have a question from Dino Boy. He said, seriously, when is Ishii getting his top title reign?
There you go. And you know what? I don't think he ever will. And I don't think, you know, if he gets the title, it's like, you know, it's the Lifetime Achievement Award. And in 2019, 2020, 2021, whenever it would happen, like, I get it, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would love to see Yuji Nagata come back, and I can make you a sporting case as to why I think Yuji Nagata could upset Okada and win the IWGP Championship, even at his advanced age, even not being in the mix. So you can make a case for it, but, like, is it going to make any sense down the line? Say what?
I'm trying to see this Kojima title run.
Again, like, in your mind, you can make up a reason why that could happen. But, like if you think about it, it's like, does it make any sense? Is it going to make any sense at all? Like, if he, you know, but with Ishii, is it just more about the struggle? Is it more about, like, he can get a big win over an outsider at the main event of a Dome show and not have to win the IWGP title? He can beat somebody in New Japan and not have to win the IWGP title. You know what I mean? For people to lose their minds. I'm not against it at all. I don't think it's ever going to happen. And I think that's going to be okay if it doesn't. You know, again, it may ruin some people's fun, and I'm not against him getting that one big feather in his cap down the line, but, like, an extended reign or anything like that, nah, I don't think it fits. And he doesn't need it.
Well, here's the thing. Our good friends over at the Voices Wrestling Network, they put out
I hate those guys.
Do you? Well,
No, it's good.
They put out a tweet recently, and they mentioned, when was the last time that somebody was a meandering mid-card level, like journeyman for the majority of their early years, and then, 14 or 15 years into it, just suddenly turned into one of the greatest wrestlers of their generation. And like, it's unprecedented if you really think about it in many ways.
I think a lot of people, the closest example was probably DDP, Diamond Dallas Page.
Maybe.
But even the in-ring work is, nowhere near to the level.
Not even close. That's nothing against DDP, but it ain't close. I mean, I don't know when an athlete, Kurt, there are guys that have come along later, but not, it's hard to even draw a parallel to where exactly Tomohiro's at. And it really is, it's amazing. And there were people a couple of years ago, Alan Farrell being a great example of like, we are looking at with a guy who's turned himself into an all-timer. And I shrugged it off. And I'm not saying that he's an Observer Hall of Famer or anything like that, but I'm going to say this, if, my personal Hall of Fame is filled with dudes like Arn Anderson and Jerry Stubbs and Butch Reed, and guys who will never make the Observer Hall of Fame, but they are guys I will watch in matches a zillion times over most of the guys in that Hall of Fame. And Ishii is just one of those guys now. I mean, he is great, and he may not be Hall of Fame great, but goddamn, as far as what he's been able to pull off in the ring and to get people to react in the way that they do to him. I mean, everything about him, how he sells, and granted, he's helped by the fact he's got a cartoon face. All he's got to do is squint and open up his mouth, and it looks like he's dying. It doesn't matter whether you lightly tap him or not. It's like he just became a phenomenon. And my God, I mean, him and Hanma both, and obviously Hanma got hurt.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Their career trajectories are so weird with how they ended up going.
Well, two things I want to say. If Tamura's not going to make the Hall of Fame and Ishii doesn't make the Hall of Fame, I'm fine with it because they're in good company with one another. Number two, if Nakanishi ended up getting a Lifetime Achievement title reign, give Ishii the belt. Fuck it. But we did have a really last question regarding this.
If Akira Taue could Chibu cement driver his way into the one GHC title reign, God bless. Right. Yeah, I mean, again, and it wouldn't look. And this is a benefit. And we used to call it crappy American style. I used to saying that, where it was just do something very American at a time where New Japan wouldn't do that stuff. But at this point, you can do the very short reign with Ishii and it wouldn't be the best thing for business, but you could pull that off and people would absolutely love it in this day and age. And that's a benefit of times changing.
Oh my God, I would cry if Ishii won the IWGP title. But does Mox add anything to the tournament, or would it have been better to stick with someone traditional like Minoru Suzuki?
That comes from Scott Rand.
From Scott Rand.
Oh man, for me, I mean, look what he's added. I mean, to me, I'm sure other people could have had great matches with the people that they've been, hooked up with so far, or especially with Ishii, but we talked about Fale. You can question why he's in there, but when it comes to Mox, it's no. You take advantage of the fact that this is the hottest free agent on the market. He's going to your American competitor, your counterpart's competitor over there, and bumping up against guys who you helped establish in Kenny Omega and such. So it's no, you damn sure are going to take advantage of him and put him in the tournament and put him in good positions and in advantageous positions. And I am fully in belief that if it wasn't for the Dallas show, that he would have been in Block A and he would have been plying his wares against all of those guys. And I wonder how it would have turned out for him points-wise and turned out for him politically or anything like that. But how things have turned out with him being in the B block, I think it's been great. And I think the match with Ishii, if nothing else, we've got a long way to go yet. But that match with Tomohiro, that was enough. That was just more than enough to legitimize him in this tournament, unless he just completely craps the bed going forward, which he's not going to do. I mean, that match made him for the whole tournament.
Yeah, and like you're saying, Mike, he's one of the hottest guys in wrestling right now. So getting that buzz, especially when you're trying to build a Western fan base and get those New Japan World subscriptions up, bringing in a big name like that is always great. he just has an aura about him, and even the New Japan fans have been taking to him. And I just think he adds a whole different twist to the tournament. He has that unorthodox style and that kind of brawling death match background that most of these New Japan guys haven't really gone against. And, you know, these are all fresh matchups that we're getting with Mox. You know, Mox really hasn't worked with majority of the guys that he's against in this B block here. So we're getting new matchups. We're getting a hot star. I mean, you know, the way he came to the company, just beating Juice Robinson and getting that U.S. title, I mean, he was a star from day one. So I think it's been a great addition.
You mean that him and Taichi didn't work in FCW together? They didn't work in, you know, like one of those deathmatch promotions on the indies? That's crazy.
Well, he's got so much way to go too. It's like he's in there in the B block, and it's literally, I want to say it's the B list, but like, you know, he's in there already establishing himself and earning his way in the company right from Jump Street and the whole partnership and everything else. And it's like, you still have matches with him against Pickett, you know, Sabre and Okada and Tanahashi and Ibushi and like all of these guys, and Ospreay, like, they're all still to come down the line if you want them to. So I think this has been a great way to have him in.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen long-term with the current state of pro wrestling, but I mean, for them to add the hottest guy on the North American indie circuit to the G1 Climax, a former WWE world champion, how could that not help? We won't know, you know, until we hear like what the New Japan World subscriptions, you know, what they're reported as later in the year. I'm sure we're going to find that out. But I bet you we saw what happened when Jericho was brought in. I bet you anything that this expands. In fact, I'll say personally, I have plenty of friends who know we have this podcast, know that we love this product, but have never been interested. And then suddenly they want to watch the G1. And I bet you Moxley's inclusion has a lot to do with that. And yeah, that's a big deal. So he's added a lot. Sure, like there have been people who might be like diehard pro wrestling fans who have kind of complained about the fact that he's been protected and pushed so hard. But it's like, dude, they're doing business. What do you think was going to happen? He's having good matches. Like, I've been nothing but happy with Jon Moxley in this tournament, and we're still early. Like, this is only night 6. He's still got 6 matches to go against top competition. Like, him and Shingo is going to fucking deliver. Him and
Christ, he escaped Taichi and Cobb so far, and then had the biggie with the Shi. I mean, we got the whole thing ready to go still.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't imagine that this won't do anything but build things up. And you know, people talk about how great like Jericho was, but Jericho never did a G1. Cody never did a G1, but like Mox is doing it, and so. Sure, he might not be your classic Purezu, you know, strong style like fighter or whatever, but he's out here doing the damn thing. So you can't do anything but respect this guy. You know what I mean? So I'm excited for it, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
And one last thing on Moxley, I love the post-match promo after the Ishii match where he's like, oh, man, my wife is going to be so pissed at me. She hates tables.
Yes.
But it was all Ishii's fault. He started it.
Let's talk about
exactly.
Yeah, so moving on to the last Cork and Hall night, night 7. Last night here in Cork and Hall from these past shows, we open up the show with Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Bad Luck Fale at 6 minutes and 30 seconds via countout.
Zack Sabre Jr. is a badass. That's what I have to say about this. Every single time that you thought Bad Luck Fale should squash this skinny fucking whip, like he would put him in a guillotine. He'd put him in a rear naked choke. He'd put him in an armbar. He rolled for fucking leg locks. Like it was like freaking UWFI style versus like the best of like the monster heels from like North American wrestling in the 80s. Like I freaking loved this match, like probably more than I had any right to. And then, you know, the booking of it when they ended up brawling to the crowd and he put Fale in a freaking triangle choke. I was scared for my life because we've been conditioned as North American wrestling fans to expect guys who are facing bigger opponents who put them in triangle chokes to get powerbombed. And like they were on the outside. I could have seen him gotten thrown in the crowd, see him got thrown down the steps in Corkin. Instead he choked out freaking Fale, runs down to the ring, and picks up the countout win. Like, this was brilliant booking. 6 minutes and 30 seconds. This is one of the best Fale matches of the entire tournament.
They had me worried that it was going to be a double count. I was like, I can't believe you're gonna waste your draw. It's going to be on this. And then he got up and went sprinting. And that was fantastic. And him making it in, and Fale not coming close, but still trying to lumber down there. I thought that actually turned out really, really well. And it in some ways, it didn't even have to go as long as it did. You could have probably cut 2 minutes off of that, did the same damn thing, but they did have to, they brought it out a little bit more. And I thought it turned out to be good. And then obviously with Zack Sabre Jr., there are stories that they tell in this tournament that, like, when Tanahashi lost to, right off the bat, it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen here? Okada last year, when he lost 2 off the bat, it's like, this isn't going to be forever. We're wondering what's going to happen with Jay White. We were wondering what's going to happen with Zack Sabre Jr. We're talking about night 4, and now you get to night 6, and it's like, okay, is this it? Is this when he starts to go on the run? Is this what we're going to point to, where he finally beats Fale, and now he's going to go on a winning streak here? So, you were wondering what was going to give with Zack Sabre Jr., and he ends up getting the win in the way that he does that way, and he keeps Minoru Suzuki off his back for a little bit longer, and he technically has got a chance to be in play. Although, I do wonder, even though they've said no Taka, I do wonder if by the end of the tournament, if we get Taka back, because he seems to be far better with him.
Yeah, that would be great to have Taka back towards the end of this tournament. But I thought this match was really fun. I love the count-out wins. I love them, including count-out, so conditioned fans know that a count-out can actually happen. And I love that they have the ring announcer counting. It adds so much drama to it, especially when they get to the higher numbers. Like when they get to 13, it's like 13, 14, 15. And the drama just increased, like 17, 18. That increased drama with the countouts. And then you see, like you mentioned, Sabre's like hauling butt, like obstacle course, jumping over fans and like running out of the ring. And then Fale is trying his best. Like he was so close to getting back in the ring before 20, but just didn't get there in time.
and the funny thing with this was we were in Dallas, and during the press conference, there was someone who incited a serious reaction from Fale. And last week on the episode, I could not remember who it was. It was Zack Sabre. It's an underplayed story. Zack had literally incited a visceral reaction from Bad Luck Fale to where he flipped over a table at how pissed he was at this little skinny wimp who should be this geek who should be in the junior division. And like, it was like, dude, Fale should be freaking squashing Zack, but Zack's technical acumen, his catch-as-catch-can acumen is so pronounced that he was unable to do it here. This was like a David and Goliath story, and I really, really loved it. Zack, the thing with him is, like Mike talked about, he's the head of Suzuki-gun representing them in this tournament here. He's gone 0-3, and he had one of the biggest tests of the entire tournament in front of him in this giant monster. And, for a guy to go 0-3, what better way to rebuild him than to have him, defeat a giant in Fale? And what better way than to protect Fale than to have him lose by countout? Because sure, he lost by countout, but what if he'd gotten back in that ring at 20? He probably would have fucked up Zack Sabre. So this was brilliant booking by Gato.
They couldn't have done it, I guess, because the GOD was over here for the ROH show. But like, as he's running down, the only thing I'm thinking, it's like, I wish this was like the opening of The Simpsons, where it was like Bart on a skateboard, like evading through the town, where it was like Sabre just like, he lays Fale out to the point, kind of like he did, where he's laying there on the ground, and then he's got a Super Mario Brothers his way back to the ring, like through the Bullet Club. I thought would actually been really, really funny.
Yeah, that would have been great. You see like Chase Owens and Yujiro just flying out of nowhere trying to stop him.
Yeah, at the very end, the two little mushrooms, Jado and Gato, he just kind of bounces on them and jumps into the ring.
Fale didn't study Zack enough. That's the problem.
Yep.
At sometime in the next calendar year, Fale's going to fuck up Zack Sabre Jr. That's what's going to happen at some point.
But next up, we had the ace Hiroshi Tanahashi defeating Lance Archer at 12 minutes and 5 seconds. And man, the crowd was red hot for this one. We had "Go Ace Archer, Go Ace Archer." Big dueling chants in Korakuen Hall for Archer. There were actually people cheering Archer over the ace Tanahashi. This man Archer is over. He is a star.
What the fuck is going on when Lance Archer is getting chanted at the same level as Hiroshi Tanahashi in 2019?
Loyalty matters. Loyalty matters a lot. And I tell you, I thought he'd get the win on night one because of all the work that he's been putting in. And, Archer's been in a rough spot. He's been banged up over the last couple of years, I'm not saying big time, but, the back and everything else. It's not like, he's been in the greatest of conditions, and he was, doing yeoman's work down there in Dallas trying to drum up interest. He's basically in some ways like the local promoter, and it was already an uphill battle down there, and he did, great work that way. So I figured he could win over Ospreay. But I was wondering, because of where they were at with Davey Boy Smith, because of where they were at with Suzuki-gun, like exactly how is Lance Archer going to come back? What are the plans for him? Where are they establishing him? What's going to happen? How's the reaction going to be? Damn. Well, you know what the reaction is? Like, I think everybody that's English speaking, that at least I've corresponded with and I've paid attention to on Twitter and in other places, it's like, we're all, pretty much, you got to give it to them. It's like, okay, well, we'll see where we go from here. But hey, who was not pleasantly surprised with Lance Archer? He's got a new move that he's getting over. And that Japanese crowd has taken to him because, again, he's one of their guys. He's been a New Japan guy, and they've taken such great care of him that has now translated. And I think that match, with Tanahashi, that's going to go a long, long way for him. And I think he's got a lot of goodwill in the bank right now. And I think he just, again, baby steps. We'll have to see what they do with him. They got a lot of names and a lot of people in the mix, but they don't have a lot of monsters. And Fale is, he's a thug. He's presented as muscle, but he's not exactly a monster everyday wrestler out there. Lance Archer can kind of be that guy, or at least has got the opportunity right now to be that guy. So right, much Archer, like, when Wade Barrett or Sheamus or other guys would get hurt, and it's like it's the best thing for him. Him being away for a long time, it's been the best thing for him, and coming back with the matches that he's had. The first one you can say, okay, that was Ospreay. Fine. If you want to go ahead and say that. But, the next one was Fale, and even though this one was Tanahashi, I mean, you could tell Archer and what he was able to bring to this match. And, yeah, Tanahashi, framed it beautifully and matted it, and it's a lovely picture now hanging on the wall because of Tanahashi. But, Fale brought his art to it too. Or, I'm sorry, Archer brought his art to it too.
Yeah, Archer, this guy, he was so good in this match. And like you mentioned, he's gotten over the EBD claw. He's doing cannonball dives off the apron. And even some of the character work he was doing in this match, too. Young Tanahashi telling him, I'm the ace now. Like, you're done. I'm the ace of this company. or Young, I'm from Texas. It puts him in the Texas Cloverleaf. Like, all around, in-ring, character-wise, the promo stuff, like, Archer has completely turned around. He's on a hot streak, and like you said, you got to give it to the guy. He's just on a roll right now.
Here's what I want to know.
Was that the match? I'm sorry. Was he going to claw Tanahashi off the apron, and then the young boys caught him?
No, yeah. that was a
match.
That was a Kenta
match.
I love that. That just reminded me of that, and that was so. I thought that whole thing was so great. That whole sequence was fantastic.
My whole question is, if loyalty matters, then why aren't we doing the official New Japan podcast? That's what I want to know, because we've been loyal. We've been promoting this shit the same way as Lance Archer. We are basically the podcast equivalent of Lance Archer in 2019, essentially. Like, that's us right now.
Hey, man. they don't love me that much, and I was doing podcasts about New Japan before they were actually called podcasts.
Most improved of the year, Lance Archer. Like, this guy has been a revelation. Like, I expected him to have a fantastic match with Will Ospreay, simply because it's Will Ospreay. They had an incredible match at the New Japan Cup this year. It was in Dallas. All the stars were aligned, and I was like, this is his star-making performance. When he came out and performed, I was like, yes. But I didn't expect him to have the Fale performance. I didn't expect him to have the Tanahashi performance. I don't even know what to call that move where he was in the corner where he did that like avalanche like flip.
Oh, the spinning like spinning splash thing.
Who knows what to call that, bro? Archer, like, I loved KES. I hated the fact that he spit all over the fans, but I loved KES as a unit. But I always thought he was the weaker of the two. I was like, Davey Boy's the great worker. Archer's the charismatic guy who spits all over people and who can talk. But dude, ever since Davey Boy Smith has left, like, Archer has been a revelation for me. And I think he's going to run away this year with Most Improved of the Year in our awards season. Bro, him and freaking Tanahashi just blew me away. Like, this match was incredible. And then Archer's promo work afterwards where he's like, I might have lost to Tanahashi, but now everybody dies. I was like, I believe everybody's going to die. Like, I can't wait for him and Okada. Who would have thought in 2019 I was excited for an Okada and Archer match? Like, what the heck is going on?
I tell you, it's crazy. But, you know, you go back a decade and a half to Lance Archer when he was in TNA. Like, it's not like he got over like AJ Styles or or anything like that. But, like, you know, the goofiness with Christy Hemme and Jimmy Rave, the Rock and Rave connection thing, and all that sort of stuff that he did, you know, coming in with Kid Cash, and then he got people, like, there is a natural charisma to Lance Hoyt. There's a natural charisma, and there's an obvious fan connection to this guy. And again, we'll see how they tweak it, and there's a lot of names there, including people like, you know, Juice Robinson and other English-speaking, you know, stars that they need to get over, but they need more American stars, as great as Zack Sabre Jr. and Ospreay, and, you know, at some point, you know, Jay White is as great as those guys are and as important as they are for North America. Like, it would be good to have some Canadian and American stars, and Juice can't be your only one, and Cobb's not full time, you know? So it's like, you know, again, this is where Archer, I think, could be a really, really nice fit. Again, he's not going to be the greatest thing in the world or anything like that. I don't think we're going to be pining for a Ishii type of Lifetime Achievement Award IWGP title reigns for Lance Archer, but man, he could be a pivotal tool going forward.
Yeah, and we have some questions here. So first from Dan Coffin, he says, do you see Lance Archer's surprisingly good G1 so far as an anomaly or the start of something much bigger for him?
I just want to say, I think you should lead us off, Jeremy, because everything that Mike was alluding to from his TNA run, you've been following this guy yourself since his TNA run. Talk about the fact that you've been, like, copying for this guy since day one.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned, you know, last week and a couple of weeks ago about, you know, teaming up with Kid Cash, and like you mentioned, you know, the Rock and Rave connection, and, you know, being in TNA, he wrestled a lot of those exhibition guys, and there you saw some of the athleticism, the moonsaults, and, you know, he was kind of putting some of the tools there together, but then, you know, he went over to WWE and he had the Vance Archer run on WWECW, and they kind of forced him to wrestle, you know, a stiffer, you know, stereotypical monster style, and things didn't work out there for him. Then he went back on the indies and went to Japan, and now just going on this run. And, you know, to answer Dan's question, I do think this is the start of something much bigger for him. I do think with the performance he's putting out in this tournament, I think we can see him, you know, getting a never title shot, maybe getting a U.S. title shot, maybe even getting an IC title shot, and being, you know, that top Gaijin monster on the roster.
I'll tell you what, I haven't been following Archer for as long. I've been aware of his Lance Hoyt days, and I saw him in KES when they were like the NWA champions and all that, but I never pictured him as being anything bigger than a top Gaijin monster heel tag team role. That's kind of like the max that I ever saw for him, and I never thought he was like the best singles guy. Suddenly I'm realizing, like, oh my God, he's freaking amazing. I loved the Fale match. I loved I've loved everything he's done in this tournament so far. Obviously, I don't like his Ronda Rousey hairdo, but aside from that, him knocking out every single young lion when he comes out, and like the heat that he brings to the ring every single time, I'm loving it. And I'm like, dude, Fale was that guy like 3 or 4 years ago. You know, you could see him winning a New Japan Cup or something like that, or being the IC champion, but like those days are kind of gone. And, you know, with the current climate of how the wrestling industry is, everybody kind of getting snatched up. How many monsters are there in New Japan, especially with it being Japanese and a lot of guys being smaller? Archer really stands out there, and he's killing it. And him being loyal, him sticking with them, him promoting them like Mike alluded to, sky's the limit. I don't think he'll be IWGP champion, but like, could he be a credible challenger in a year or two based off this tournament? They are like, I don't want to say they're building him up to the same level as like Zack Sabre last year in the New Japan Cup exactly, but this has very similar rings to it in that they're putting him over a lot of top guys and having him perform really well against other top guys that he's losing to. In that, bro, they're doing what New Japan does better than anybody else right now. They're building stars, and Archer is becoming a star. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, and I can see him. Like, we'll see how things go, you know, but I can, you know, he is a guy that you could see getting a one-off title, IWGP title shot, at least down the line, if things continue to roll for him. And you can, you know, you can put him into a, you know, a title situation and see how he goes and everything. And again, you know, this is all really early to say right now, but things have gotten off to a great start with him as far as his return back there. And, you know, I don't know if the sky's the limit or not, but like, he certainly can put himself into some good positions, because like you said, how many monsters are there really? And as long as things continue to move forward, he's proven an ability to work pretty well with different people. You know, again, this is where the tag team experience had a chance to help him, I'm sure, too. And he's been able to study guys, and he knows how to be the best him in New Japan. You know, and that's as simple as that. He couldn't do that anywhere else, I don't think, and get over in the same way that he has over there, not only in this run, you know, since being back, but even before with KES and teaming up with Davey Boy Smith. You know, it's a good special situation for him there. And I don't know where things are going to go, but again, they're off to such a really, really good start right now.
We had another question from a user on Reddit, Zack Sabre Time. He said, Tanahashi versus Lance Archer was so good, but do you think that the same moves might hurt Archer? I think the derailleur is awesome the first couple times, but doing it over and over again makes it less cool, I guess. Still, the man is doing incredible good on him. What is the derailleur?
The derailleur is the pounce that he's been doing.
Okay, I'll say this. He's doing the derailleur over and over again, the pounce, which is fine. But, like, it's gotten other guys like AC Romero over, you know, and it's been fine. And no one else in New Japan's doing it. So, you know, what's the big deal with him doing it over and over again when, you know, in every company there are guys who have, like, you know, their signature moves. But I'll say this. We haven't seen him do another tope since the one time we saw him in this tournament do it. We haven't seen him do too many, like, rope walks aside from the one time we saw him.
He's been doing the rope walk in every match.
I think he teased it in one match and it didn't end up happening, right?
No, he's done it every match.
Okay, so he's doing that every match, but we didn't see him do the same, like, spin around, like, vaulting body press from the corner that he did against Tanahashi. He's been breaking out other moves and other wrinkles to his game that I haven't seen him do. And you know what? If he's going to be a top guy and have signature moves, fine by me. Every single top guy in New Japan has signature moves. It's pro wrestling. Every single top guy in the world of pro wrestling has signature moves. So what's the big deal? Aside from that, his matches have been incredible.
Yeah, I don't think it's
pro wrestling. I mean, you got to have multiple moves too. You got to have a move to beat everybody. At least you should have a move to beat everybody, unless that was written by Monty Brown, you know, who just really doesn't want him doing the pounce or something, like, you know. Like, yeah, there are other concerns there, I think, for me.
Yeah, and another thing too, you got to think, you know, they're going to different cities. You know, Archer hasn't been in many singles matches. He's got to establish his moveset with the crowds in different cities. So him doing the derailleur or the pounce, whatever you want to call it, over and over again, are getting fans conditioned to what his moveset is. So when he's in big matches, in that derailleur gets countered, like in the Ospreay match when Ospreay dives over it. In the future, when Okada dodges it or Tanahashi dodges it, it's going to be a big spot in the match because he's established the derailleur as one of his big moves. But moving on now to the next matchup of the night, we had Kenta defeating Evil at 15 minutes and 3 seconds. I thought this was a pretty good matchup here. I went 3-7-5 on it. It was good, hard hitting, back and forth action between these guys, with Kenta eventually picking up the win.
I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was good. And that's probably, it makes it sound worse than it actually is. I only given it 3. But again, I thought it was a good match. I think they were, it was one of those things that I think they left a lot on the table. It just felt like a little bit of I don't want to say a down night, but it kind of felt like a mid-match in the span of a long-term tournament, and everything was fundamentally, it was fine. I just don't think it was anything special whatsoever. Although not having to take the caps lock off and go lowercase when writing out the results is always good.
And I mentioned it earlier with the crowd not really taking to Kenta, and this was another match. Evil is one of the top guys as far as popularity in New Japan, and the New Japan crowd loves Evil, and they were firmly behind Evil in this match. And once again, we're booing Kenta when they were kind of brawling on the outside, and Kenta hit that suplex on the chairs when they were brawling outside. But Kenta, to me, seemed like he was kind of eating that up, and it was kind of making him more confident.
Yeah, this match was fine by me. I was in between you guys. I was about like 3.5 on this. But, we had a question from Conrad Newton. He said, what do you think Kenta has to do in order to be truly accepted as the top guy by the New Japan audience after being synonymous with Noah for a decade? And I think that is a great question. I think it's very telling about the attitude concerning Kenta right now, because it's almost as if, not to diminish what he did in WWE, but it's almost like the story here isn't that he's a WWE guy coming into New Japan, but that he's a Noah guy coming into New Japan after all these years. And that's actually a good sign, because people are assuming, or they're associating him with his previous run with Noah, as opposed to, associating him with some of the failures, some of the injuries from his WWE days and that sort of thing. I don't know if it's so much about him being accepted as a Noah guy that's coming into New Japan, but more so about him being accepted for the work that he's doing here, which has been solid. I thought this match was fine. I thought that it was solid. I didn't think it was blow away, but the fact that Kenta went over Evil again, at this point, he's 3-0, 4-0? 4-0. He's got to be one of the favorites for the top point earners in the tournament at this point. And I was thoroughly impressed throughout the match, and Evil had a good accounting of himself as well.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of took me out of the match was the very ending, was to go to sleep. He didn't really hit that flush. I don't know if that's on him or Evil, but some of the GTSs in this tournament haven't been looking all that great.
I don't think anybody's taking it as great as they possibly could. People seem to be taking it in a weird way. What do you think, Mike?
Of what? The whole situation with Kenta and the response to him?
That, and also how people are taking the GTS in this tournament.
Well, I wish he would use something else. And I know it's his move and everything. I just think we've moved on to a point now with Kenta. And, again, body-wise, he's so much smaller than other guys. I just wish he'd go to a different move. Him using that on Shingo, and that's why I really like their match, them kind of matching up against each other, because size-wise, it's a perfect fit with each other. It really is. Evil to a point because of how stout he is, the same sort of way, but I just wish he'd actually get away from that move altogether. I haven't really thought much about the way anybody's been taking it or anything like that. Nothing's really stood out to me that way. Other than me thinking that I wish he's kind of moved on to something else. Even Moxley, when it came to the DDT, he added a high angle to that Ghost Rider, and it made it a little bit different. And I think we're just to the point where I'd like to see Kenta do something else and have a little bit, again, I know that, for Japanese fans, I don't think anybody cares and thinks it's CM Punk's move or anything like that. But I just think at this point, I just would like to see him move to something else. As far as the reaction goes, I think at some point he's going to be wildly cheered. I think, again, somewhat with the fan base, it is him as an outsider. It is him as a former, a WWE guy coming back who abandoned, all of Japanese wrestling. But also, yeah, he's a former Noah guy. And, people do remember, the older fans and everything. It's a nice point for a pro wrestling fan to have, to root against Kenta for. But at some point, this, of course, I think it's difficult for me to believe that this isn't all just building up to one big, again, he's there with Shibata. Like, at some point, this is going to build up to him finally shaking hands with Tanahashi in the middle of the ring and everybody going, absolutely apeshit over it.
Definitely. So we're going to move on to the next match here. We had Kota Ibushi defeating Sonata at 19 minutes and 10 seconds. I thought this was a pretty good match. I thought Ibushi and Sonata worked pretty well together. It seemed like Ibushi might have been a little bit slower than usual. I don't know if because he's selling the ankle or the ankle is actually legitimately bothering him, but he didn't seem to be quite the same pace as he normally was. But there was still great displays of athleticism in this match between both these guys. And overall, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, my thoughts on this match, it was real interesting because we noted of the past few weeks how Sonata has really been coming into his own as far as charisma, as far as the fans taking to him. They've always taken to him, but it's even been more so pronounced the last few months, especially during G1 season. And at one point during the match, after they did all their Lucha Libre opening spots, their junior kind of opening sequence, they went up to the top rope and did sort of like a, like a fan off, I guess you would call it, where like the fans were literally openly split between Ibushi and Sonata, which was crazy. But as the match wore on, they really played into the story of Ibushi's injuries and Sonata trying to kind of take advantage of that. I thought the closing stretch of this was incredible. It was a little bit slower in the beginning. This match went about 22 minutes, about 19 minutes, but you couldn't really discredit them for how great the finish was. I just think the middle part was meandering. I still went about 4 stars here, but the closing stretch was excellent, like you get from many New Japan matches, especially during the G1. And I really love the part where Sonata stole the Kamigoye and hit Ibushi with that. But ultimately, Ibushi able to kind of weather the storm, counter out of all of the different, moonsault attempts and different skull end attempts, and still able to best him with his own Kamigoye, put Sonata away here and pick up a big 2 points. That was a big deal.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike?
People are good. I thought it was really good. I gave it 3.5. As I lose my headphones here, as I lose the headphones out of my phone here, Adam Summers is going to yell at me at some point whenever we record the Big Audio Nightmare over this, because I always point out things about Sonata that he hates. Like, sometimes as good as he looks and as graceful as he is and as athletic as he is, there are some things that he just is, his mind is there, but his body's not exactly doing it. And there were a couple of exchanges where he's doing the athletic thing back and forth with Ibushi, where it's like, this dude is not Ibushi size and does not have Ibushi dexterity. And I that's one of those things that was Sonata, where Tanahashi and Nakamura and Okada and Styles and Balor and some of the major guys that they've had over the last couple of years be on the top of that company, you don't see some of the slip-ups and some of the foibles that you do with Sonata when it comes to making things look crisp and clean. And that's one of the only things that, to me, is kind of holding him away from that level of guy. And I think it showed itself in this Ibushi match a couple of times, too. I think sometimes it's like he doesn't have to do as much. And some of these exchanges that they do, I mean, again, they're not as perfect as I think he gets a pass on it somewhat. And maybe I'm too hard on him. I don't know what it is, but I thought this was really good. And I see people raving about it. It's a 4+ star match. And, again, this shows you how great Sonata is. And it's like, yeah, I love him too. And I think he's pretty great. I've liked him for a long time, but there are things that he's missing. And there were, a couple of slip-ups in this match that just, I don't know, to me, they stand out. Maybe I'm unconsciously looking for them more, but, I heard about how great this match was going to be before I saw it, and I remained unspoiled before I saw it, but I heard about how great it was going to be, and whereas Okada and Ospreay went past it, I think even, Tanahashi and Archer went past it, when it came to Sonata and Ibushi, it didn't for me.
Yeah, this was not my favorite Sonata match so far in the tournament. I really loved the Ospreay match and the Zack Sabre match, and I thought they were doing a great job kind of giving him some different opponents and kind of seeing the versatility of Sonata, being able to work a high-flying match with Ospreay, work a match with Sabre, and then kind of doing the match with Evil. And then this match with Ibushi, like you mentioned, I don't know. I mean, I still thought it was a very good match, but I don't know. Something seemed a little bit off.
You know what was off? They weren't trying to best Kenny Omega like they were last year. Because last year they had to best Kenny Omega's match, and they didn't have that like high angle, that high aim to do that this year. And it was fine. It was fine. I thought it was a good match. But last year when they were on the main event and they had to try to overcome, the high marks that Kenny Omega was setting for them, that was a different story. Obviously, I didn't think this match was as good as the one they had in the G1 last year, but overall, I still really enjoyed this match.
So now we're going to move on to the main event of the evening. Kazuchika Okada defeats Will Ospreay at 22 minutes. And this was just another incredible main event, a great way to close out this Korakuen Hall trio of shows. And these guys just showed why they are two of the best wrestlers on the planet right now. You had Ospreay, kind of being like the older big brother here, kind of bullying Ospreay around towards the beginning of the match. And Ospreay kind of being the underdog and having to fight back from underneath. And there's a lot of incredible counters, athleticism from both these guys. Just the Rainmaker counter into the Spanish Fly was incredible. There's so many incredible spots and moves in this match.
Dude, freaking when Ospreay hit the Oz Cutter on the outside off the rail, that was incredible. The entire closing stretch of the last 7 to 8 minutes was, top level Okada. Like at one point, Okada tried to hit the Rainmaker, and then they went into a 3-minute sequence where Okada was just countering Ospreay was countering everything, and then finally Okada hit him with the Rainmaker, and I was like, oh my God, that was all to build up to him finally landing the Rainmaker. It was incredible. I was still about 4.5 on this match. I feel like maybe part of this is I'm a little bit desensitized from how many great wrestling matches we've seen back to back to back to I'm like, am I underrating matches? At one point in our group thread, James Boyd said, Josh is out here handing out 5 stars to matches only that whisper that they love him in his ear just seconds before he climaxes. I feel like a match has to be to this different level for me to give it 5 stars at this point because, oh my God, we're watching so much great wrestling. It's incredible. But Okada and Ospreay very, very well might be my favorite match of the tournament. This blew me away. That finishing sequence was vintage Okada. Him and I saw that Dave Meltzer said this was one of the best matches he'd ever seen. So maybe I'm misreading this, but man, this match blew me away.
Yeah, man. Electric main event, great pace, great counters, great closing stretch, all-time great match of the year contender.
What do you think,
Oh,
Mike?
I'm not going to disagree with that. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that at all. It's amazing for Dave to say something like that, too, in a match that didn't have Will Ospreay involved in it. Maybe. but it's, really, though, yeah, it was the reason that I'm happy that my hand kind of cramped up giving 5 stars to, the main event from the first 2 nights. And I'd even hesitate on giving this one 5 stars because I kind of think about some of the 5-star matches that we've had at the Dome and even some of the stuff, even Ospreay and Shingo from this year. It's was this as good as that? And it's yeah, I think it was. I don't know. Was it? It's you start matching them up and it's I don't know, but it's rare air. I tell you what, it's certainly rare air. And I don't think it's going to be the last thing that we have left. Between those two guys, I think Chris Charlton said it the best when the match started. Before this was about Ospreay trying to prove that he was at Okada's level, and now we've gotten to the point with Ospreay, especially this year, where it's just now can you beat him? Now can you? This is like Naito. This is this is like Okada when he came to Tanahashi. great. We know you're at his level. We know you're fantastic. You're a hell of an athlete. You're a great pro wrestler. You're not at that guy's level. You can't beat him. And that's the story that's being played right now. You know, you got Ibushi and Naito fighting each other over, you know, who's the man to go on to face off against Naito or face, you know, Okada. Well, you know, Ospreay has established himself into that mix too. And him, again, this is where stats too, there's been a lot of talk about how is AEW going to work stats. And I think they've done such a lousy job from the start with, well, he's 0-0 in singles matches, but he's 1-0 in tag. Who cares about any of that stuff? Stats in pro wrestling matter when you go back into time and you go, this is what Okada did against Ospreay here. This is what Okada did against Ospreay here, or vice versa. This is what Ospreay did against him. And this is just another notch in it. And pushing Okada to the absolute max and the absolute limit. And if it's not a 5-star match, it's 4 3/4. You know, it may not be as legendary as some of the main events at the Tokyo Dome or anything like that. But if you're, you know, you'd be hard pressed on just in a vacuum finding a better pro wrestling match than that.
Yeah. And we have some questions here. First from Reddit user Ginseng G1. He says, will we see Will Ospreay as IWGP Heavyweight Champion within the next 12 months?
12 months. You know, the problem is if it's not in the next 12 months, does he make it 12 months to get another championship shot? You know, and I don't think it is. I think we got a lot more Okada to go, and I think we have Naito, or I think we have Ibushi. I think it's going to be one of those two guys who also shares that belt with Okada in the next, at least in the next 6 months, you know, or at least in the next year, because this is only still July. So if you kind of look at the picture of the next 6 months taking us into the Dome, I don't see any drastic changes there. And I think at the Dome, you know, unless you think Ospreay is going to win the title there, then he's really not going to play into the title picture again. He doesn't really have the opportunity to until really the second quarter of next year. And we're going to have to see if he's still going to be doing anything as a junior heavyweight. If he is, then I think that's going to, you know, you have that gets in the way as well, too. Time-wise, it doesn't match up. Now, in the next 2 to 3 years, yes. And one of the reasons why is because I think between the two, if you had to hold a gun to my head and say by the end of 2020, who's going to be more of a chance to have more of a chance at the IWGP title, Ospreay or Jay White? I think it's going to be Jay White. But the thing is, too, Jay White's generational opponent is Will Ospreay. You know, because again, Ospreay is old for 28 in a lot of ways, but he's still only 28 years old. You know, and White's what, 26, 27? You know, he's deceptively older because he just, you know, he came into the game a little bit later and established his name a little bit later. But like, they're going to be bumping up against each other for a while. It's not going to be, you know, Vader and Brody or anything, you know, or Hanson and Brody, you know, anything like that, you know, for this era or anything. But like, you know, them establishing themselves as like the four in Tanahashi and Nakamura, I don't think is too far out of the realm of possibility.
I think you're wrong. I think his generational opponent is Dave Finlay.
Well, it absolutely is. It is, but you know what the thing with Dave Finlay is? Because it's true, though. I mean, if you think about it, like, you know, if Finlay comes back and gets established, you have that huge advantage and huge distance that Jay White's put in front of him. Like, if you think Finlay can be that guy, you have something where you could work with it where he could come up and be that guy down the line. And I know you're kind of making the joke about that, but like, you know, unfortunately, because of Ring of Honor being such a stinking mess, you know, and how things have gone and injuries and everything else, like, you know, it's been very unfortunate, but he's been completely forgotten about. But the good news about New Japan is probably once he comes back, everything is going to be a little bit revitalized again. So you know, Dave Finlay, you kind of joke about it now, but it's like, I do wonder, Dave Finlay, yeah, I do wonder down the line what's going to happen. I keep wanting to call him Fit. I keep wanting to call him Little Fit, and I can't do it.
Fit Junior.
Yeah, I absolutely.
That's a Little Fit.
I absolutely agree with you as far as your timeline's concerned. The only thing is, could it feasibly happen that in the next 12 months he maybe could win a title shot? It's possible if he won, like, maybe say the New Japan Cup next year. That's something I could see realistically happening. But if I was going to bet my money, I'd say no. I think your 2 to 3 years is much more likely, especially with him still carrying the junior title. you've got to build some distance between him losing that belt, getting established in the heavyweight division, and then winning the belt. I think there's a little bit of bridge building you've got to do there for that sort of thing to happen. In a perfect world, do you make the best wrestler in the company the champion? Absolutely you do. And who is that this year? It's Will Ospreay. But is that going to happen in the next 12 months? I don't know for sure. Could it happen? Sure. But I don't know if it's going to be, within a calendar year. I mean, what do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think it's very unlikely. You guys have brought up, all the great points on why it can happen. And, I think the junior title is one of the biggest roadblocks right now, because after this tournament, he's still going to be the junior champion. He's going to have to defend that junior championship. So I still think there's some story to tell of him trying to juggle between being a junior and being heavyweight. And then eventually when he loses that junior title, you kind of tell that story of him transitioning full-time into the heavyweight division and becoming a credible contender, possibly, semifinal, final of the New Japan Cup, being in the G1 again next year and kind of establish him solely as a heavyweight. We had another question here from Reddit user My Life for Giza. He says, with Ospreay losing to Okada, who's headlining Royal Quest? The JCast guy suggested Suzuki, which is interesting, but I'm not sure Suzuki's ever getting another title shot.
I really don't know. We kind of had thought that it was Zach as a lock. Once I saw that Zach was going to be the second round opponent for Okada, I really started to question that logic. And I thought there was a good chance it would be Ospreay, but I assumed Ospreay needed to pick up a win here. But 3 nights in, that also seemed unlikely. And now we've seen that proven, to be the case. What are we, 4 nights in, 3 nights in? I don't know. But, with the 2 biggest British stars in Japan, Zack Sabre Jr. and Will Ospreay both being bested by Okada, it makes you wonder who in the heck could possibly get a title shot in England that's going to draw. The other thing, too, is we got to look forward to King of Pro Wrestling. You got to assume whoever beats Okada during this tournament is probably going to set themselves up for a nice title challenge, assuming they don't win the G1 in general, to potentially challenge at King of Pro Wrestling. I have no clue who's going to challenge at Royal Quest. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Muzza asked kind of a similar question. He suggested possibly Kenta. I think Kenta could be a great option. I know, Mike, you mentioned earlier, they could make a big deal about Kenta doing his, first UK tour as a part of New Japan. And you can do that, if Kenta beats Okada coming up this week, you can set that big title match up there at Royal Quest. And then you can feature Ospreay in the junior title match. You can feature Sabre in a Rev Pro title match, and you kind of get some more mileage out of those 3 guys.
Muzza also mentioned, he said, do you think instead of getting an IWGP title shot at Royal Quest, do you think we instead just get a IC title match to headline that card, which is an interesting thought? Mike, what do you think is happening at Royal Quest?
That's a good question. Again, it's a really good question. The idea of Kenta, it's not the worst idea, and who says it's got to be against a British opponent? Or, you could do a Shi, even if you wanted to there too. Again, it's what makes people happy, on a tour like that as well matter. Now, I think we'll have to see when it comes to King of Pro Wrestling. Somebody's going to be, if somebody beats Okada, that's obviously going to be the tell on who gets the title match, because Okada's not winning the G1, at least in my opinion. So we know what his title match is going to be set up for January at least. So, okay, what does he have for around October, and what does he have immediately after this? So he's probably going to have at least 2 leading into that match that I assume is going to come against Naito. So that leaves, some other competitors there. So I think one is just obviously, on top of the show in England, he's going to have 2 more title defenses. One of those could certainly be Kenta. And I guess you could do that in the UK, but it's just, to me, it's too early to tell, because until he loses in the tournament, I think once he does, that we're going to see exactly who it is. But it's, as far as what actually takes place is a title match in the UK, I don't know, because Suzuki, I think, I love that, and I think you can get away with it, because I know what you're saying about him never getting another title defense again, but I think him, slapping around Zach or something like that, or them having some sort of conflict where Suzuki challenges for that belt, it notches off. You get Suzuki a title defense. People in the UK will love it. You know, the people who are going to that show will get a huge kick out of it, and you don't have to change the title. You know, I think it checks off a lot of boxes that way.
You know, Ishii is a former, Rev Pro British champion. Has done a lot of Rev Pro shows. He's another guy that would be great for the main event of that show. And, don't have to change the title.
Yeah.
Great main event there. The UK fans will love it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ishii's definitely a possibility, but Suzuki makes a lot of sense to me. Just the fact that he didn't get included in the G1. He's undefeated on the undercards so far. He's making a big deal about destroying all the legends that are in the G1. I could see them definitely going that way. They did something similar with Taichi last year when he was not in the tournament. Not to like diminish Suzuki by comparing him to Taichi, but he ended up in the IC picture almost directly after this tournament was over. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being that title challenger at Royal Quest. Yeah. We got a couple okay, perfect.
Well, we got through those G1 matches, and Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to hop on to cover these G1 nights, man.
Hey, I really appreciate you having me on. Sorry I was so long-winded and everything. It's always get a kick out of talking about this, and for as great as Wrestling Observer Live is, let me not bash anything there. It's a very headline-driven, WWE-driven show. So any chance I have to talk, especially with you guys, I've had a chance to listen to the podcast a lot, and I've just listened to a lot of the Social Suplex podcasts a lot. The passion shows. You guys love what you do, appreciate what you do. And I appreciate you having me on to talk, because obviously I love this stuff. And I know, being able to talk about it with other people who love it too and who keep up with it and who get it, I think it's fantastic. And I really, really, really appreciate it.
Mike, let me ask you, Tampa, you going to be there next year?
I don't know. The whole plan was to go because my brother is right now, he's stuck down there. He's stationed in, oh God, where is he at? He's on the west side there. I forget where he is. So somewhere in there near Alabama. I forget where it is. But he's Air Force, so he's stationed there. So we were thinking about like making that like the home of the operation, but it's like Tampa is still like 3 hours away. It's like, I don't know, man. It's like, do I go to the Cauliflower Alley Club and go to the Charlotte convention next year for Mid-Atlantic and do some other stuff, or do I shoot the wad at WrestleMania? And I'm still trying to consider it. It's going to be hard though as it gets closer. It's going to be really hard not to do it, just because last year was amazing and meeting up with you guys was awesome. And with everybody, with it becoming, it is worldwide now, and I don't know how people are going to be able to run. It was a lot easier to run in New York. It's going to be hard venue-wise, but like everybody and their mother comes from all over the world now, literally to this show, to WrestleMania weekend. So it's going to be really hard as it draws closer to not come down for at least a couple days and see what's going on. It's just like my curiosity is going to get the better of me, I'm sure.
Here's the thing. I didn't get to hang out with you guys last year. So this year, I know these guys were, quote unquote, feeding you beverages. Young boys can be. They were the
worst. They had all sorts of terrible things there. It kept me up late. Man.
Well, I made terrible decisions not going out with you guys. So if you are here, you will be being fed beverages courtesy of Young Boy. You got to come through, and maybe we got to do a live podcast follow up next year, April.
Yes.
You know what? I would love that. Actually, I would love that. Hopefully you don't keep me up all late. I have to go to church on Sunday morning. It's terrible. All these
Mike,
beverages and oils and flowers and such.
Mike, tell our listeners where they could find you online.
Man, it's really the only spot is on Twitter at Sempervive. I really don't have anything else. I hate Facebook. So I hate Twitter most of the time too, but at least I'm always available there at Sempervive. You can listen to me if you could tolerate it over the Wrestling Observer website. Mostly there. I do venture off, and I have a SoundCloud. I did lie because everybody's got a SoundCloud. I don't rap on it, but maybe I'll put some beats up or something like that. And occasionally I will put things there as well, too, that don't have anything to do with the Wrestling Observer, but that's at least the easiest place where you can get me, Wrestling Observer Live, every single day, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It's repeated at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Sports Byline Radio Network. Also, it comes on Sundays as well, too. If you have a Sirius XM satellite radio, you can listen to the show at 6 p.m. on Sundays over the Dan Patrick channel, as well as Fight Nation Radio there, too. And I do the Adam and Mike Big Audio Nightmare. If you like stuff like this, and you do, that's why you're listening to it. Love New Japan, you love All Japan, Noah, Dragon Gate, DDT, Big Japan, Stardom, all that sort of good stuff. We talk about that as well, too, on the Adam and Mike Big Audio Nightmare they do with Adam Summers. Again, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, been doing it a long time. It's them from the Progressive Power Hour radio show. We came over to the Figure 4 website in 2005, about a year after that had gotten started. And for a while, we were the only thing there talking professional wrestling and mixed martial arts out of Japan. Since then, Fumi Saito and Jim Valley have come over with their show as well, too. So I'm not saying don't listen to this. Definitely keep listening to this show. But if you wanted to assist yourself in expanding your Japanese knowledge and listen to a couple other shows as well, too, we got you held down over there at WrestlingObserver.com.
Well, I want to say a couple things before you go, Mike. The fact that you guys cover WWE, obviously most of our time is completely dominated by watching every New Japan show, but the fact that you guys cover WWE and bring such an enlightening view of it and, cover it, it makes it easier for a fan like me who maybe doesn't know what to watch. You guys can tell me what's crap, what's good, and that makes it easier for me. But not only that, but like the contributions that you brought to, the landscape of Puroresu, I'm sure it's kind of almost crazy to hear someone like us who's covering this extensively say man, what you've done for all these years, your writing and your recording, it has forever altered we wouldn't be doing this without the contributions of guys like you and Dave and Brian and yourself and everything like that. It has really, really influenced us. And I don't know that there's a Keepin' It Strong Style without Mike Sempervive, honestly.
I appreciate that a lot. I think that's the one, hopefully that was the one thing I was able to do, was be a bridge for a lot of people and bridge, the world of Japanese wrestling with American fans. And again, it was a learning process for me, learning some of the traditions and accepting and understanding some of that stuff. And we're at a completely different time now, but you see how, you can see guys, how some people react to some things sometimes where you got to talk them off the ledge. No, just stay in this here for a minute, and it's not just us doing it with New Japan too. I mean, it happens with fans of All Japan, Kento Miyahara becoming such a big star now. And then people who haven't really been watching or only watched in the last year go, well, why is this way? And why is it that? And there's always going to be a place to try to help out and, try to bridge the gap and just to be able to sit and talk about wrestling. And I really appreciate you saying that because, there was a time where there was, I'm not saying that there was nobody to talk about Japanese wrestling to, but there were no outlets to do it with. And believe me, I was told a lot that nobody's going to listen. I was told a lot, and had the shows, whether it be the PPH or the Big Audio Nightmare, be put down a lot, like nobody's listening. And what we found was that's not true. It's not going to get as many hits as a Dave Meltzer or a Brian Rant or something like that. But we hear it when we talk to people like you guys, when we go out to a WrestleMania or we go here or we go there, and people go, oh, yeah, hey, remember this? Or they start talking, and it's it's a very humbling thing to hear that we got people involved in it. And it's really awesome to be able to sit and talk to people about it now. And have it be so, so many shows out there and so many opinions out there. It's awesome. And I really, believe me, you have no idea how much that means to me.
Once again, Mike, thanks so much for coming on the program this week, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Good luck, and I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, just want to thank Mike again so much for coming on. We're going to finish up the show now with a few questions from you guys, as well as going over the upcoming schedule and just a quick few news items. So first question from Maserati. He says, are we going to have to stop calling Tanahashi the ace of New Japan?
I think we'll never stop calling him that, but obviously this isn't just because last week I made the exact same question to you and Rich, and it landed like it didn't land at all.
Well, I think that's Maserazzi's favorite segment from last week.
Yeah, I think he really enjoyed that. I kind of said that facetiously, obviously, because we know we're never going to stop calling Tanahashi the ace.
Next question from Ricky. He says, who's impressed you most so far?
Well, if I got to say a person that's impressed me the most, you could go with the obvious and say the top performer of the A block or B block, but that's not actually what's most impressed me. What's most impressed me has been the owner of both blocks, Lance Archer.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Oh, really? We have the same answer?
Yes, bro. The American Psycho, Lance Archer. Dude, let's go Ace Archer. Let's go Ace Archer. Dude.
Bro,
this man Archer.
He's so fucking over.
Like with Mike, this man Archer, he's over. He's a star. He's having great matches. He's doing great promos, great character work. If you had told me when we did our G1 preview a few weeks ago that Lance Archer would be the standout of this whole tournament and be most improved, I'd be like, nah, Chief. But Lance Archer proving everybody wrong, coming out here, getting over the EBD claw, doing...
Bro, how fucking crazy is it that in 3 or 4 matches, one person can become the most improved wrestler of the entire year in New Japan? I know we're not a company that, or a podcast that likes to bury other companies, but let me just say this. You couldn't do this in WWE. You probably couldn't do this in NXT. You can't do this in Impact. You can't do it in AEW. This can only happen in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, nobody gets this over in just a couple matches, and that's the beauty of the G1 Climax. I'm going to leave it at that.
Nice. So next question comes from one of our Georgia Glitter Girls, one of our Bulldog crew, from Rachel Patton. She says, favorite surprise or unexpected moment of the tournament so far? Hers was probably the flying pit bull putting Moxley through the table.
I would have to say that is absolutely my favorite moment and surprise of the entire tournament. Who would have ever expected Ishii to freaking come off the top rope and go through a table? Like, that's completely unexpected. With her stealing the best answer of the tournament, my second answer would have to be easily Zack Sabre Jr. choking out Fale and then getting a count-out win in Cork and Hall. That's just amazing to me. Is there anything else that's really just surprised you aside from those 2 moments?
Trying to think. I mean, obviously we talked about Archer. The way Archer's gotten over has been the fact that there was dueling Archer and Ace chants was unexpected. But definitely, flying Ishii was great. I'm trying to think if there's any.
I got a couple other moments. Evil putting Sonata in the freaking Paradise
Lock, yeah.
That's been amazing. And Toru Yano's run through the G1, beating both Naito and Jay White.
Yeah, the Jay White match.
Oh my God.
That was very unexpected.
Both have been super unexpected. Those are my favorite surprise moments. Anything else from you?
Trying to think. I mean, there's so many maneuvers and counters and stuff we can talk about. I mean,
bro, it's because you're a mark for these flips. That's
the Rainmaker into the Spanish Fly.
Oh, that was awesome.
The freaking head and blade from the front. There's so many unexpected things, but yeah, those are probably the highlights right there.
Next question, Rambone_Slampig said, we hear a lot about Gato's long-term booking. If he really plots out storylines so far in advance, does that leave him unable to respond to a surprise, like Lance Archer getting really over all of a sudden? ? Does having the LA Dojo Young Lions on this tour, mixing it up with the regular Dojo crew, portend a Lionsgate Project style show on the horizon?
So first part of that question with the long-term booking, I think with all great bookers, yes, you have your year kind of mapped out, some key matches, key feuds that you're planning throughout the year. You're setting stuff up for down the line. You're creating stories, creating rivalries. But being a good booker, I think you have to realize when somebody is getting over, or an act or something's getting over that you weren't really expecting, you got to be flexible enough to kind of pivot in that direction a little bit. Now, I'm not saying, because Archer's getting this reaction, Gato's going to completely drop everything and make Archer the IWGP champion. But I think going forward in the future, when he's setting up, there's a lot of tours coming up. We have this East Coast tour, tickets going on sale on Friday. He can now put Archer maybe in a semi-main, maybe even a main event on one of those nights. Maybe you do Archer in a U.S. title match in the main event on one of those nights, or a never title match. He's now a guy you can utilize. They're doing so many tours now. Got a Super J Cup tour coming up, and then moving into the fall, you got the Destruction Tour and the King of Pro Wrestling Tour. That Super Junior Tag League Tour, the Power Struggle. There's so many spots now that you can plug Archer into.
I hope it does not portend him to be unable to respond to a surprise, because I'm all here for the Fale Okada Wrestle Kingdom main event that we're supposed to be getting, rightfully so, right?
Fale and Okada?
Oh, I'm sorry. Archer and Okada. Archer and Fale are going to be my new Osprey and Sabre. I'm going to mix them up forever. That kind of ruined my joke. But as far as Dojo, Young Lions, and we haven't gotten a Lionsgate project in a while.
It's been a hot minute, but I'll tell you, I'd be so down for another Lionsgate project, especially with these LA dojos. I would love to have this whole big feud with the LA dojo and versus New Japan Young Lions.
Hey, the cool thing with those shows was that it was always intended to be something to give reps to the Young Lions so that they could get, main event experience on a low level. It was never intended to be something that drew super well, or even drew majorly well on the New Japan World, platform. But with that being said, we haven't had one in a while. I would love to see that to be the case. I couldn't speculate and say it's going to be the case, but if we're going to keep getting, Carl Fredericks and Shota Umino matches, I'm gonna be all for it.
Yeah, sign me up. Or if you get, Clark Fredericks against, Yuji Nagata on a main event of a Lionsgate show. Sign me up for that.
As far as Gato's booking, how do we know he hasn't already called audibles because of people getting over? We don't know. Right. So yeah.
Next question comes from Reddit user Mookie1515. Kenta, Mox, and Okada are the only undefeated guys left. Bearing the possibility of any of them winning all undefeated, who is going to give each of them their first loss?
Oh, God, I don't know what the schedule is.
Well, I would say for Okada, I think his first loss is coming from Kenta.
I agree.
Which will be happening on Saturday.
Who's beating Kenta?
That's the more difficult question. Looking ahead, I'm trying to look ahead here. Let's see, we got Mox.
I wouldn't be surprised if Fale beat him. I wouldn't be surprised if Osprey beat him.
I think Sabre is going to beat him. I think they're facing off on the last night.
Well, that's the last night. But
yeah.
At that point, he has to have already taken a loss. Otherwise, he's going to win the tournament.
Yeah.
So someone's got to beat him before Sabre. I'm going to guess Sonata's a chance. Osprey's a chance. Fale's a chance. For Mox, oh my God, I don't know. What do you think?
For Mox, I think there's a shot for Shingo. I think Naito has a chance of beating him.
Yano?
Yep. There's always a Yano upset. I think
Jay White,
Naito.
There's plenty of opportunities for all three of these guys to take losses, and we know they're gonna take losses. So, for those of you who have accurately predicted so far, expect some losses to be coming. But as far as who's first, you said this Saturday is Okada and Kenta?
Yeah.
That'd be my pick.
Yeah, I think, Okada's going to get the first loss out of these three. So next we have a question from Sir Sam.
Sir Sam, I'm coming for you, dog.
He says, I got a question. He said, I got a question about how you rate things. He said, what do star ratings mean to you? I asked this because I noticed because Jeremy was loving a Yano match, but then only gave it 2 stars. Do matches have to accomplish things beyond you enjoying them to receive higher star ratings? So for me...
Oh, this is a great question.
So for me personally, there's a lot of factors that contributes into my star ratings. I've only started star rating, probably pretty much since we started doing this podcast, really. I never was one to star rate stuff, but, because we've been doing this podcast, I've been getting more into it and, trying to map out my own star ratings. So a lot of factors go into it, the time goes into it, the in-ring action, the story. Those are kind of the main factors that I'm looking for into the matchup. The whole Yano thing, yes, the Yano matches are very entertaining. They're unexpected. But when the match is only going 3 minutes or 6 minutes, it's hard for me to go any higher than possibly 3 stars. It could be a very entertaining match, but for me personally, with that timing, I'm probably not going to go any higher than 3 stars on a match that's, sub, 6 minutes. But, again, a story, a rivalry, if you build up a great rivalry and you're telling that kind of play that on the match, that's going to, increase the star ratings for me. But for me, a lot of my star ratings is kind of based on the in-ring action, the maneuvers, the flips, the dives, the big high spots, the crazy counters, the crazy reversals. A match has a lot of that. It's going to get a higher star rating for me.
Okay, so me and Jeremy have some similarities, but very big differences when it comes to our star ratings. And I think that here's the thing. Let me just be clear. My star ratings are bullcrap. They're not cataloged anywhere. Somebody at some point could probably catalog my quote-unquote star ratings that I've done on this show if they were so inclined. I haven't done it, so I don't know what my star ratings really look like. But I'll say this. As a broad outline, 5 stars means it is among the best matches that have ever happened in the history of pro wrestling. So when I say something's 5 stars, I'm saying I think it's among the best matches that have ever occurred. 4 stars means that it's an excellent to great match. 3 stars means I think it's good. 2 stars means I don't think it's very good. And 1 star means I think it's abysmal. But beneath that means it's among the all-time worst matches that have ever happened, ever. Now, things that play into that, very similar to what Jeremy said. It could be the crowd reactions. It could be the story. It could be the atmosphere. It could be the violence. It could be the ring rate or the work rate. Any number of things could allude to this. To me, it's more of a gut feeling than anything else. I could watch a match and think, that it's higher than other people have rated it just based off of my emotions to the match. But to get 5 stars, it's got to be incredible. It can't just be, a really great spot fest, because I'm not going to give it 5 stars because I'm going to think, do I think that this is among the best matches that have ever happened? So sometimes I'm a little bit stingent when it comes to this sort of thing. That being said, those Yano matches, I'm like mostly 3 stars on them because it doesn't matter about the amount of time they get. It matters about my reaction to it, my entertainment of it. And so, yeah, it could be a 4-minute match, but if I was really, really entertained, I might go 3 stars on it because, 3 stars means I thought it was good. A good match is a good match. Now, I do have this weird thing, though, where a 18-minute 3-star match is way worse than a 5-minute 3-star match.
That's really bad.
Yeah. So there are some matches where, if it's a 10-minute 4-star match, that means I think it's excellent. If it's a 20-minute 4-star match, it means I think it was pretty good, but it's not great.
Yeah. And another thing too, now that I have been cataloging my star ratings on Twitter and the Grapple app and on my phone, so I'm trying to look back now at other matches too. So I'm like, when I'm rating this match, I'm like, all right, let me look at a match I gave 4.5. Like, is this match I just watched, is that equal to this previous 4.5? Like, does that make sense for me to give this?
Right.
I kind of look at the history, like, all right, I gave this 5. Do I think this is on the same level as this 5-star match? So I try to use some history, timing, the crowd. Crowd reactions is a big
huge.
Those Cork and Hall,
huge.
That Cork and Hall crowd probably bumped all those matches up a quarter or a half star because of how hot they were.
Yeah, you do those in some small rinky-dink gym in I don't know, AHE or some place like that. It might be less.
Yeah.
But and great question, Sir Sam. By the way, I'm still coming for you. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, me and Sir Sam, we're going to be facing off in the Ricky and Clive Quiz Time Invitational semifinals, and he's going to get worked. He's going to get these hands, if you know what I mean. I'm going to bring out my inner Braun Strowman, you know what I'm saying? But Dom Homie 101 asked us, he said, with both Jay White and Zack Sabre Jr. starting out with 0-3 records, how much of a possibility that Gato pulls a trick out of his sleeve and gives us a ZSG versus Jay White as the G1 Finals match? And what would the fans' reaction be if this match was actually the finals for this year's G1?
I think it's
not possible.
Yeah, Gato would have to lose his freaking mind to give Zack Sabre Jr. versus Jay White for the G1 Finals.
That's impossible.
Like, I definitely think both these guys are going to have a hot streak and come back and win a lot of matches in a row. But for them to be in the finals, I just think that's very, 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 very unlikely.
Normally, if I was going to give percentage to something, I'd be like, anything's possible, so I'd go like 1%. But in this case, I'm going to go -%. This is not happening.
Yeah, if this match happened, fans would probably riot. This would be the one time where like the LIJ fans and the Bullet Club fans and the New Japan fans just all unite together and just go on an outrage.
Now I think, could Jay White win the block? It's an outside possibility. I don't see it happening. I see him going undefeated the rest of the tournament until he faces Naito to set up that final night. Very likely. ZSJ, I think he's done. I think one more loss. It might be a little while before he gets that loss. We got, 6 more nights, or what, 5 more nights for him?
Yeah, something like that.
5 more nights. He's going to take one more loss. He's in the spoiler category purely at this point. So there's no way we're getting Jay White and ZSJ. And I don't think either of them are making it to the finals, if you want my honest opinion. But that's a great question.
He also asked, thoughts on Tana vs. Kenta rematch at Wrestle Kingdom if Jericho isn't available?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's great. They've been building this story now with the whole respect thing and Tanahashi not accepting Kenta. So I think they can continue to develop that story if Kenta's going to stick around. That would be a great option. I think I would actually rather them just do that than Tanahashi Jericho.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to it. We've talked a lot about Tanahashi and Kenta the last 2 weeks. And I'd be all here for it. And then finally he said, thoughts on Liger being in the main event for one of the 2 nights of Wrestle Kingdom. And if not the main event, he's going to be in the semi-main event one of those 2 nights. It's going to be a big deal. Jushin Thunder Liger, 31 years. What, 30? Yeah, 31 years. That's incredible. We're going to talk a little bit more about Liger in the news, but yeah, he's going to be in one of the top matches one of those 2 nights for sure.
He's going to be one of the top matches, but I don't think he'll be the main event on either of those nights.
That's why I said semi-main event, possibly. Could he be in the main event? I actually wouldn't be surprised if maybe the first night he was. Possibly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's likely, but I wouldn't be too surprised by it.
Could happen.
I would love it.
So, wrapping up after night 7, here's what the rankings are looking at. On A block, we have Kenta on top, 4-0, 8 points. Actually, Kenta and Okada both tied, 4-0, 8 points. Then we have Tanahashi, Archer, Evil, Ibushi tied with 4 points. And we have Ospreay, Sonata, Sabre, and Fale all tied with 2 points, 1 win and 3 losses. Over on the B block, Mox is the sole man on top with 3 wins and 0 losses, 6 points. Then you got Ishii, Shingo, Juice, Yano, 2-1 with 4 points. And then you got Naito, Goto, and Taichi all tied with 2 points, and Cobb. And then holding up the rear at the very bottom, 0-3, 0 points, is Switchblade Jay White.
So before we talk about these final nights and predictions, let me just ask you. Kenta, possible that he wins the block? Yes or no?
Yes.
I'm agreed. Yes. Okada, possibly he wins the block. Yes or no?
Yes.
I agree. Tanahashi, yes or no?
Yes.
I agree. Archer, yes or no?
No.
I agree. Evil, yes or no?
No.
Ibushi, yes or no?
Yes.
Ospreay, yes or no?
No.
Nope. Sonata, yes or no?
Nope.
Sabre, yes or no?
Nope.
Bad Luck Fale, yes or no?
Nope.
So we've got 4 guys that we think could possibly win the block. We got Kenta, Okada, Tanahashi, and Ibushi. That's pretty crazy. B block, Moxley, yes or no?
Yes.
I don't think he's going to, but I'll say yes.
I don't think he's going to, but is there a chance? Yes.
Ishii, yes or no?
No.
Agreed. Shingo?
No.
Same. Juice?
No.
Yano?
No.
Naito?
Yes.
Goto?
No.
Taichi?
No.
Cobb?
No.
Jay White?
Yes.
I'll say no. There's only 2 guys I see in the B block being possible winners. Realistically, if you want my honest opinion, it's either Naito or Moxley, period.
Yeah. I think Jay is kind of the outside. Like, he's not dead yet. Like, if they really want to, he could reel off 6 wins and beat Naito and go to the block. I don't think it's going to happen, but I still think there's a chance.
I agree. I think it's more likely that Okada wins the A block than Jay White wins the B block.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I want to say this. I think that the way they're building it up, it seems like Kenta's going to win the A block, and that seems likely. I think we both speculated that Tanahashi was a likely winner of the A block. There's many people who thought Ibushi. I think Okada was someone that nobody estimated. I'm going to say this right here, right now. I don't think Okada's winning the A block, but if he wins the A block, Okada's winning the G1. That's my feelings. That's how I feel right now, and the way he's been wrestling. They could do that, man. They could do that,
dude.
They're starting to sway me to be like, I've been so dead set on Naito. Suddenly, I'm like, what if Okada wins this? It changes the game.
Yeah. So going into this coming up week, we have 3 more nights coming up. On night 8 will take place on Wednesday, July 24th. We got Juice Robinson versus Toru Yano. Who you got?
I've got Juice.
I'm gonna go Juice as well. Hiroki Goto versus Taichi.
Goto.
Going Goto as well. We have Jon Moxley versus Shingo Takagi.
Moxley.
Going Mox as well. We have Jeff Cobb versus Switchblade Jay White.
Jay.
Yep, going Jay also. And then for the main event of that night, we have Tomohiro Ishii versus Tetsuya Naito.
I got Naito. By the way, that match last year was near 4 3/4, so that should be a banger.
Yeah,
always have bangers.
I also have Naito and looking forward to that one. Then night 9 will pick up on Saturday, July 27th. This will also be airing on Access TV. We have Kota Ibushi versus Lance Archer.
I've got Kota Ibushi.
I also got Ibushi. Will Ospreay versus Bad Luck Fale.
I'm going to go Ospreay.
I'm going Fale.
Oh, my God. You think this guy's winning nothing?
Well, there's some other matches he can win, but...
That's true.
Fale, I think he's going to get that New Japan Cup win back. Evil versus Zack Sabre Jr.
Sabre.
Going Sabre also. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Sanada.
Tanahashi?
Yeah, I'm going Tanahashi as well. Then the main event of that night, the big main event, Kenta versus Kazuchika Okada.
Kenta.
I'm also going Kenta.
We had a question.
Yes, from Howard Schilling. He says, do you think the winners of Kenta versus Okada on July 27th and Moxley versus Naito on July 28th will end up being the winners of their respective blocks?
Not necessarily. I think there's a good chance Kenta wins. And if he does, I don't know. I think that he has a better chance of winning the block losing to Okada than he does winning against Okada. Well, actually, I don't know. Because he could lose in the final. So either way.
Yeah. I think he's beating Okada, and
he might win the block.
He might win the block, yeah.
Moxley Naito is more up in the air because I think Naito's winning the block, but Moxley could beat him and Naito could still win the block.
Right. So let's talk about that night, July 28th on Sunday, night 10. We have Hiroki Goto versus Toru Yano.
Goto.
Going Goto as well. We got Juice Robinson versus Tomohiro Ishii.
Juice.
I'm going to go Ishii.
Ooh.
Jeff Cobb versus Taichi.
Cobb.
I'm going to go Taichi.
Wow.
Shingo Takagi versus Switchblade Jay White.
Jay.
Yep, going Jay. And then Naito versus Moxley.
Naito.
I'm going Naito as well. All right, now we're going to wrap things up with the last few news items.
So we had news last week about the controversy surrounding the reports with Chris Charlton and him being relegated to strictly just doing translations, no longer being a focal point of the commentary team. whatever happened, that has been reversed. We are pleased to announce to you. It appears that whoever was behind it, whether it was Axis, whether it was TV Asahi, whether it was Samurai TV, we don't really know. You know, we've heard a lot of conflicting reports, but the good news is this. Earlier in the week, Chris Charlton did come out on Twitter and seemed to put out a post that, in my opinion, corroborated the stories that were surrounding him. Being a class act, he basically said that he was going to continue to support New Japan in any way that he was able to, and that he was not used to being like the focal point of a news story, but that Rocky Romero and Kevin Kelly were going to continue to rock the commentary team. Suddenly, a few days later, the news came out that he would be restored to being a full commentary team member, and that seemed to be the case because every night that we watched the G1, he was much, much, much more vocal. Now, I don't know if that has to do with him being recovered from his, being sick last week like we heard about. I did see where Kevin Kelly basically said that the reports of Chris Charlton's demise were greatly over-exaggerated.
Right, and they were joking about it on commentary, about him stirring everybody up on Twitter.
Right. So, and then there were some people who came out and were like, well, it seems like the reports from Dave Meltzer were not reliable, not true, but there was also, reports from other sources that were saying that the fan correspondence to these different media outlets were what basically swayed them to restore Chris Charlton. To me, it does seem like, and I'm not going to sit here and cop for Meltzer, but it seems to me like everything he was saying seemed to be the case. The guy wasn't reporting. He came out on Twitter, and he used a lot of basically PC speak for I'm not going to be on commentary, but these guys are going to kill it. I'm going to continue to support in whatever way I can. And then suddenly the reports came out that this was switched.
And then he was back on the air.
And then he was back on the air. To me, it seems like everything that was reported seemed on the up and up. That's my opinion on it.
And I agree also.
Not only that, but other well-respected Japanese podcasts and reporters said that this was something that they looked into and was corroborated, and then fans seemed to be outraged, and I'm sure that they probably didn't know how popular Chris Charlton was. So I'm glad to see that in either case, I'm glad to see he's back to where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
We do have some reports of the ticket sales for the G1 Climax as well as the Access television ratings. So for day one, 4,846 tickets were sold, were given away. 4,000 paid for day one. That was for the American Airlines Center in Dallas. Day two, 4,074 tickets were sold. That was a sellout. Day three, 4,074 tickets were sold. That was also a sellout. Day four, they sold 6,946 tickets. That was a sellout. In day five, with a headline of Ibushi and Ospreay, they sold 700 seats. That was a sellout for Cork and Hall. They also sold out Cork and Hall day 6, 700 seats. Day 7, another 700 seats were sold out. Day 8, which is coming up, which is Ishii and Naito headlining, 3,700 seats are sold out so far. The arena seats are actually sold out, and they do have some terrace level seats still available, but it's close to basically a sellout for day 8. Day 9, there's a few seats left, but the reserved seats for the floor and for most of the main seats are sold. 7,000 seats sold for that day 9, Okada versus Kenta and Aichi Prefectural Gymnasium. Day 10, in the same arena with Naito facing Jon Moxley, they're completely sold out. Day 11, Tanahashi versus Evil, they're near sold out. There's a few seats still available. Day 12, Tomohiro Ishii versus Goto, they sold 3,500 seats. They're near sellout. They do still have some available. Day 13, Okada and Sonata, 5,000 seats sold in Edion Arena, completely sold out. Day 14, same arena, Naito and Shingo headlining, completely sold out. Day 15, Okada and Evil at the Hamatsu Arena, 8,000 seats sold. They still have some available, but they're near sellout. I mean, do you see the trend of what we're saying here? Day 16, Ishii versus Shingo Takagi. near sold out. There's 5,000 seats already sold for this for that night, day 17. Nippon Budokan, 12,000 seats sold, which I think is more than what they usually sell for that first night. That's with the Okada Ibushi headliner. Day 18, Naito and Jay White at Nippon Budokan. They're near sold out, 12,000 seats already sold, average. And then day 19, they're completely sold out for the finals. So, I mean, as of now, they've already sold out 9 shows, day 2, 7, 13, and 14, and the finals. And then we had a report from, and all the Cork and Hall shows are sold out, and the Osaka shows are sold out on every single website. So, I mean, they're killing it this year. And then from Wrestling Observer Newsletter, they said, while they don't have actual numbers because Access TV is covered by Nielsen, the ratings for this year's Best of the Super Junior final were up 15% from last year's, which is probably a combination of the quicker turnaround and the interest in Will Ospreay versus Shingo Takagi this year compared to Hiromu and Taiji Ishimori from last year. And probably the biggest interest was the fact that Jon Moxley's first match since leaving WWE was showcased there. Plus, the Dow show was up 6% in live viewing from last year's San Francisco show. So, New Japan is killing it right now.
Dude, they're on fire.
They're on fire right now. Like, these are incredible numbers. The free match of the week this week is Okada versus Evil from G1 27 last year. That was the year where Evil upset Okada and was able to basically secure his title shot against Okada. Well, not last year, 2 years ago at King of Pro Wrestling. They usually put these matches up to kind of foreshadow what might be happening.
So it could be foreshadowing Kenta beating Okada and getting a title shot down the road.
I think that's a good estimation of why they might have put that match up. Also, by the way, if you haven't seen that match, it's probably the best match of Evil's career, so you probably should watch it if you haven't seen it. Also, this past week was the San Diego Comic-Con. During that Comic-Con, there was a report from PWI Insider where they talked to a toy figure company called Super 7, where they talked about the fact that they have secured licensing to create wrestling figures with multiple Japanese companies, including Lucha Libre companies. But amongst them, they said that they are securing a license to print and produce New Japan Pro Wrestling figures. So those are supposed to be the first line of figures that they come out with this coming year. So be on the lookout for that.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to pick up some of those. I love wrestling figures. I haven't bought any in years, but I mean, Okada, come on.
Yeah.
Ishii, I would love to play with those. Play with wrestling figures at 31 years old. You got to be kidding me. Choshi's retirement match, which we talked about a few weeks ago during Power Hall and Cork and Hall, is now available on New Japan World. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check that out, you can watch it on New Japan World. It's available now. Davey Boy Smith Jr. did an interview with Hannibal TV talking about the reasons he left New Japan Pro Wrestling. Amongst them, he discussed his issues with Gato, miscommunication in New Japan, and the future of his career. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, I highly recommend it. Very good interview and well worth the while to check it out. There was a Twitter interaction between Randy Orton from WWE and Will Ospreay. Did you see that this week?
Yeah, I did see that. Ospreay tweeted out something about, finding the moment to making them happy, something like that. And then Orton was like, good luck with that shit. And then Ospreay was like, oh, I guess good luck with that shit. It's going to be my next T-shirts. And then Orton was like, we should do Orton versus Ospreay. And then Ospreay, it sounds like a great idea, but you're a multi-time champion, and they won't miss you. Come over here and do that. And Orton was like, great, I'll ask about them on Tuesday. I'm not on the Raw reunion. So seems like Orton, I don't know if he's just being his normal troll self on Twitter, or is he trying to set up an angle to get in the G1 next year?
Possibly.
So yeah, that was funny. Ospreay can't escape the WWE guys.
Possibly. Also, the final bit of general news here. Rev Pro has announced a tag team tournament that they're hosting right now. You can check that out. The winner of this tag team tournament will get a IWGP tag team title shot against the reigning champions, who right now currently are the Guerrillas of Destiny at Royal Quest. So Rev Pro making tag team wrestling a bigger priority than New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is awesome.
You got teams like Aussie Open in the tournament, Team White Wolf, the A Kid, and Carlos Ramos. So,
because you gotta go. If you're a great wrestler, you gotta go to Spain to fight the A Kid.
Well, the A Kid might be coming to New Japan.
Yeah, but if you're a great wrestler, you have to go to Spain to fight the A Kid. It's different. It's different fighting him in Spain. But in other news, this past weekend, Ring of Honor held their Manhattan Mayhem event this past Saturday. We talked about it last week, and unfortunately, it's our displeasure to tell you that for the entire time that Ring of Honor has been running the Hammerstein Ballroom, they drew the all-time lowest attendance record that they have ever drawn. I did see reports online where people were talking about how they were being upgraded to floor seat level tickets from the upper deck balcony tickets. It didn't look too bad on television the way that they had it laid out. We did watch this event, but it's a far cry from what we're used to seeing from Ring of Honor in that building.
Yeah, it was pretty sad to see.
The big news coming out of this, though, is that the Briscoe brothers did beat G.O.D. in a New York street fight to win back the Ring of Honor tag team titles, and I actually thought this match was pretty great.
Yeah, it's a pretty great brawl. Really great, solid main event. They've been doing a great job with this Briscoes and G.O.D. feud. So Briscoe's new champion. The next night at Mass Hysteria, they had an angle where G.O.D. jumped the Briscoes, so they're setting up one more match for the Summer Supercard that's happening in August in Toronto.
Yep, so it looks like they'll be facing one another again in Toronto, which this match was really good.
Yeah.
I liked this match.
Probably one of the best G.O.D. matches.
4 stars, easily. This past weekend, Jushin Thunder Liger had his final Mexico match for CMLL. They broke out all of the big, pageantry. Every single wrestler that was in that match, which was Ultimo Guerrero, Caristico, and Negro Casa, they all altered their attires to mimic that of Jushin Thunder Liger. All the Corona ring girls were wearing the Jushin Thunder Liger costumes. They had incredible pyro. They had just so much pageantry. And at the end of the match, they gave him such a great send-off. If you haven't gotten a chance to check that match out, it's available now on YouTube for free. By the way, CMLL is available. Everything they do is for free.
It's up
CMLL.
on the YouTube, yeah.
On YouTube. It's incredible. And then we're going to close the show. Jeremy, since we didn't get Sempervive to do the recommended match of the week, what is your recommended match of the week?
So my recommended match of the week is Yoshihashi versus Yuji Nagata from Night 1 of the G1 Climax 27. Now, I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes or throwing something against the wall with the mention of Yoshihashi. Talking about you, Kevin. But this is a great match. This was the first Yoshihashi one-on-one match that I ever saw watching New Japan, and I thought it was great. I had no idea who this Yoshihashi guy was, and I was looking forward to seeing him the rest of the tournament. It did not go quite as great as the Yuji Nagata match. I believe I rated this somewhere between 4 and 4.25. Just a solid way to kick off that tournament. It was a great matchup for Nagata, great matchup for Yoshihashi. If you haven't seen this one yet, I highly recommend you check this out.
Dude, I love this match. It's one of my favorite matches, actually, from that G1 a couple years ago. And it's probably my favorite Yoshihashi match by far, believe it or not.
Yeah,
I love this match. And I think that's a great recommendation. And, Yuji Nagata going on that final run in the G1, which, if you guys don't know the history of Yuji Nagata in the G1, there's a reason they gave him the send-off they did. A former ace of the company during their dark days, this was incredible. And, he made Yoshihashi look like something he would never be, which is a star.
Yep. Well, that's going to wrap things up for this week. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of nights 8, 9, and 10 of G1 Climax 29. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, I'm at Jeremy L. Donovan. The show is at KI Strong Style. You can also follow us at Social Suplex. On Facebook, we're facebook.com/Social Suplex. You can also join us in the Wrestling Squared Circle group, facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. Make sure you check out all the other shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. On Sundays, we have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. On Wednesdays, we have the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show. Every other Wednesday, we have our podcast dedicated to independent wrestling, Grown Men Watch This Shit, hosted by Jeremy Tate and Chris Bryan. On Fridays, we have Get in the Ring with Danny and Beast Mike. And on Saturday, we have All Things Elite with Floyd Johnson Jr. and Amy O.
And before we move on, I want to say a couple quick things. One, if this week, I want to thank you guys for your continued listening to our podcast. Last year during the G1 Climax, we saw a decline that we were not expecting during the G1 Climax season. Suddenly, we don't have that problem this year. Our numbers are at literally an all-time high, so thank you guys for continuing to listen. Thank you for telling your friends and family and, connections and whoever about this podcast. Thank you, Mike Sempervive, for coming on the show. Thank you, Rich, last week for being on this show. And thank you guys for everything you're doing. But I want to say one thing. We went to Dallas for you guys to collect the best exclusive audio of the media scrum that we possibly could. That's the one episode we got that has not gotten as much love as I'd like it to. If you guys are listening to this and you have not listened to it, I guarantee you, trust me, take the Young Boys guarantee. You will not be remiss to listen to that episode. I know that it's an extra episode, but I'm telling you, the only reason I'm putting it out there is because, dude, it is fucking gold, and not enough of you have listened to it. I've seen the numbers. Go out of your way to listen to it. Jeremy, take us home.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating and review, and we'll catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.